Chapter 571. Thunder Wolf Demon Emperor's aura howled, stirring up a terrifying thunderstorm. Everyone's expression changed slightly as they looked at the people from the 9 divine temples in disbelief. Why is the demon race so close to the people from the 9 divine temples? A mid-tier demon emperor. After the battle was interrupted by Thunder Wolf's roar, Feng and Whitey returned in a flash and appeared beside Yin Nuoxing. The people from the demon realm also stood up straight and looked at Yin Nuoxing and the others with sharp eyes. Even though there was no demon emperor in their group, they were not afraid in the face of dozens of emperor gods. Let's go. Among the people from the demon realm, there was a man who was particularly outstanding. He did not have any characteristics of a demon beast. His eyes were calm, as if the defeat of 2 of his companions did not affect him at all. He did not move from the beginning to the end, and only now did he speak softly. Hearing this person speak, the others could only look at Feng and Whitey unwillingly, and then followed closely behind. He probably felt that Feng and Whitey were not ordinary and wanted to rope them in. Fortunately, the 2 of you did not unleash your aura. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy today. Yin Nuoxing looked at the people from the demon realm who left and sighed softly. After he finished speaking, Yin Nuoxing suddenly felt a pair of eyes staring at him, causing him to be taken aback. He turned around and saw Feng staring at him with her beautiful eyes. She didn't say anything, but her eyes seemed to have said it all. Yin Nuoxing laughed dryly. There were so many people watching, but he still stretched out his hand and rubbed Feng's head. He smiled and said, "Well done." The onlookers slowly dispersed when they saw that there was no more conflict between the 2 sides. Some people who admired the people from the 9 divine temples stayed behind. Qi Haoyu, Qi Yu, Qi Wei, old acquaintances. Yin Nuoxing let out a long sigh. However, those people's eyes were filled with doubt. Clearly, they didn't recognize him and were only suspicious. Other than the old acquaintances, there are also new guests. Look at the one in the middle with a half-dead face, as if everyone owes him a few $100 million. The Golden Princess smiled and transmitted her voice. Hearing this, Yin Nuoxing turned her gaze slightly and saw the person in front of Qi Wei and the others. He seemed to have a sour expression on his face. She sent a telepathic message. Could this person be the Prince Qi that Sister Ji mentioned? Smart. The Golden Princess laughed. Qi Wei and the others stared at the people from the 9 divine temples below. They were more or less afraid. Since they did not see the spiritual godly physique, they could not find fault with them. As for the 12-star palaces, the 3 people who had hunted Yin Nuoxing in the Ghost Forest did not dare to come out. Even if their eternal weapons were broken, they did not dare to show up. At this time, they were secretly observing the situation in a corner of the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa. I'm afraid the spiritual godly physique won't dare to come. The Taiyuan Grand Gathering was really grand. Countless people had come to the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa. All the experts from the God world had gathered here. Later on, Yin Nuoxing and the others also saw many people from the Demon Clan. However, other than the first few people who were called people from the Demon Clan, those who came later did not seem to be called that. Now, the most discussed thing was whether the spiritual godly physique would come or not. Then, they talked about the young experts today. The people around Yin Nuoxing were all mentioned. I'm afraid they are all blind. They can't even recognize this shiny roof. Yuanshi could not help but laugh and transmit his voice. Yin Nuoxing was angry when he received the unanimous approval of the crowd. Later on, the Golden Empress and the others left, saying that they were going to see an old friend. Although they left, there was still Lei Lang and Lixin and the others here. There was no need to worry about any accidents. If there were any accidents, there was still a human bomb. Yuan Shi and the others were very relieved. However, when these young experts who were known as the strongest young experts gathered together, there would most likely be some sparks. Seeing Yao Hua rubbing his fists and palms together, Yin Nuoxing also rubbed his palms and said, "Which category should I be classified into? Lunatic? Monster among lunatics?" Yuan Shi and the others saw that he seemed to have the intention to participate and were scared pale. "Big Gua, you should rest well." The group sighed as they walked, but when they saw the silver-blue light gathering in Yun Nuoxing's palms, they quickly shut up and broke out in cold sweat. Xiao Xiao. After walking for a while, Yuan Shi's eyes suddenly lit up, as if he had seen a supreme treasure. A touch of longing and gentleness surged on his handsome face, causing the others to be stunned. Following his gaze, they saw that in front of them, there was a misty mist surrounded by birds and fragrant flowers. There was a celestial lake emitting a faint light, and ancient bamboos and trees were growing on the shore. And at the quiet lakeside, a group of fairies in white stood quietly. The woman at the front was wearing a white dress that fluttered in the wind, untainted by a speck of dust. She was like a fairy from heaven, untainted by the common populace. "I've seen my lover." Yin Nuoxing turned her head and saw Yuan Shi's excited look. She could not help but laugh, and also lifted her feet and walked over. Under the ancient tree by the celestial lake, a few people were quietly watching. The branches of the ancient tree were very clean, as if it had just grown out. There was a faint light flickering on it, and it was at least 1,000 meters tall, stretching towards the sky. It was rooted by the celestial lake, lush and verdant, and its branches and leaves spread out like a giant umbrella holding up the sky. Rustle, rustle. The soft sound of footsteps caused a few people under the tree to move slightly. They gently turned around, only to see a man in white slowly walking over. His handsome face was filled with a warm and peaceful smile, while his eyes were filled with tenderness. The woman in white slowly turned around. Her bright eyes gently focused on the young man in front of her. When she saw the dull smile on the latter's face, she suddenly could not help but smile sweetly. The smile that suddenly bloomed was like a flower of the night, releasing a shocking beauty in an instant, causing the sunlight and the celestial lake to lose their splendor. With light steps, the picturesque girl arrived in front of Yuan Shi. She extended her pure, white, jade-like hand and gently caressed Yuan Shi's dull face. The usually quiet Mei Mao finally had a moving ripple at this moment. "Big brother Yuan Shi." The girl gently parted her red lips. A soft and crisp voice softly sounded, gently caressing Yuan Shi's heart, causing him to involuntarily part his mouth and laugh foolishly. Due to the excitement in his heart, his body actually trembled slightly. However, his face continued to smile foolishly. After so many years, he had once again met the girl that he had yearned for day and night. She seemed to have become even more beautiful, yet she still repeatedly called him Big Brother Yuan Shi. Yuan Shi inhaled a deep breath of air. A long while later, he was finally unable to suppress the emotions in his heart. He took a step forward and extended his arms. After which, under the stunned gazes of the few fairies beside him, he violently hugged the beautiful girl in front of him into his embrace. Yuan Shi's action also caused Yu Xiao to be slightly startled. Her small mouth let out a soft moan. Soon after, a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. She gently struggled for a moment, but soon after, she softly sighed and gave up. She could also feel the suppressed emotions in Yuan Shi's heart. This emotion caused a gentle expression to flash across Mei Mao's face. Her jade-like hand hesitated for a moment, before she also gently hugged the big boy's back. When a few fairies from the Yu family saw Yuan Shi embrace Yu Xiao, anger erupted in Mei Mao's heart. Soon after, they seemed to have recognized the identity of the person who had come. For a moment, they did not know whether to move or stop him. They could only hurriedly turn their gazes away. After all, this was Yu Xiao's fiancé. This guy is also very noisy. Hey, don't peek. Turn back. A long separation makes the heart grow fonder. This little bit of time is left for them. In the bamboo forest, when Yun Nuoxing saw this scene, he tactfully turned his face away. When he saw that everyone was looking at him, he hurriedly called out in a low voice. Everyone also laughed sinisterly and turned around, not looking at him anymore. After a long while, the few fairies from the Yu family also walked away, leaving the space for Yuan Shi and Yu Xiao. They chatted endlessly by the lakeside and gently strolled around the celestial lake. Under the moon and flowers, in the Juyuan pavilion, This kind of scene should only exist in the heavens. Why don't we go somewhere else first? After waiting for an hour, Yin Nuashing still did not see Yuan Shi and Yu Xiao finish flirting. She looked at the empty lakeside, then looked at the people beside her and asked, "Whatever. I think the two of them are being intimate. It should take some time." Lei Ming grinned. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he was suppressed by Jin Ing and the other girls. That seems to make sense. Let's go first. Yin Nuashing also smiled and looked at Yao Hua and the others. Then, they all burst into laughter, causing the group of girls to scold them for being hooligans. Hey, you can talk, but can you put away the communication jade slip? Suddenly, Yuan Shi's loud scolding came from nowhere. Everyone turned their eyes and saw that in Yao Hua's hand, that guy was hurriedly putting away the jade slip. Then, he laughed dryly, and there was a slight panic in his eyes. Bad taste, pervert. Dirty. Boss, it's not that I don't want to help you this time. You're too disgusting, eavesdropping on the two of them being intimate. Go, teach him a lesson. The group of people roared and then rushed toward Yao Hua. Yun Nuashing silently sealed the latter's light element, then held Xian and Feng Er's hand and walked to the side. When she heard the crying and beating behind her, she couldn't help but laugh. Little brother, you're also a demon. The corner of Lei Lang's eyes twitched. He saw how she sealed Yao Hua's light element just now. Thank you for the compliment. Yin Nuashing laughed. After a while, Yao Hua was lifted up on the verge of death. The word miserable could only be used to describe his beating. Yuan Shi and Yu Xiao also came back after taking a stroll. When they came out and saw Yao Hua in such a state, they were shocked. Where's Nuashing? Mei Mao paused for a moment. She didn't see Yin Nuashing in this group of people, but she remembered that Yuan Shi had followed Yin Nuashing to travel, right? When she said this, the young man wearing a black and gold half-mask walking at the front slowly took off his mask. However, he didn't take it off, only revealing his entire face. Then, he smiled wickedly at her. What's the matter? Fairy, are you looking for me for something? After that, he put his mask back on. There were many people in Juan Mountain Villa, so it was best not to expose himself. Mei Mao blinked when she saw the somewhat familiar face of the color-haired young man. A trace of surprise flashed across her face. She turned to look at Yuan Shi. When she saw him nod, she calmed down. After thinking for a while, she understood. Then she chuckled. I understand. I won't expose myself. She spoke very calmly, but in her heart, she was still very surprised. Yin Nuashing had changed too much. He no longer had much in common with the young man she had met before. Even if he did not speak, she might not be able to recognize him. Yin Nuashing spread his hands. Since she couldn't recognize him, it meant that the possibility of the Qi family discovering him was quite small. It was rare for them to meet again, so they exchanged a few pleasantries. The two of them could be considered close friends. Although this girl had tricked him once, he didn't say anything. She was Yuan Shi's wife, so he wouldn't hold it against her. Nuashing, don't you want to reconsider what I said before? Yu Xiao covered her mouth and laughed. Yin Nuashing's face darkened. Yuan Shi and Xian were also a little speechless. Did this girl really want him to marry into her family? He smiled bitterly and waved his hand. The few of them also walked outside. Yuan Shi and Yu Xiao separated from the group. They were still talking about what had happened in the past few years. They walked a little further away, so the others didn't eavesdrop. They only saw Yu Xiao looking at Yin Nuashing from time to time with Mei Mao. She seemed to be very interested. A group of people suddenly rushed out of the bamboo forest in the distance. Looking at their posture, a few people were chasing a person in front. Everyone took a few more glances. Yin Nuashing thought of the scene yesterday, when a certain girl pulled him to play for the whole day. The slender figure that was being chased seemed to have seen the group of people here. Suddenly, she changed direction and dashed towards them. That person's face was full of panic. A pair of beautiful Mei Mao flashed with a mischievous look. The group of people in black behind her shouted loudly, but they couldn't catch up with the person in front. It seemed to be the same situation yesterday. Yin Nuashing suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his head to look at that person. Yuan Shi looked at him and also turned his head. Then, the two of them spat out a mouthful of water at the same time. Brother Yun, save me. That mischievous Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuoxing with a smile. His face was dumbfounded, and he was instantly petrified. Chapter 572. The slender figure who was being chased by a few black-clothed men in the distance was none other than Ji Wenyu, the little girl whom he had met at the Heart Lake in Yin Nuo Star yesterday. Last night, he had thought that he would probably only meet her once in his life. Who would have thought that he would meet her today? Yu still had that mischievous look. Her posture of flying and dodging in the air seemed to be dancing, as if she was a fairy that had descended to the mortal world. As for those black-clothed men behind her, they were still panting from being teased, looking half dead. They were still shouting loudly, "Young Miss! Miss! There are too many people in Juyuan Mountain Villa. Don't run around. If Master finds out that you ran out, he will kill us." Seeing the same scene, Yin Nuoxing silently mourned for the few retainers. Taking care of this little ancestor, it must be very tiring. While he was mourning for 3 seconds, Xian and the others' expressions changed slightly. They turned around but didn't see anyone. Only then did they realize that Brother Yun was calling. "Yin Nuoxing? Brother Yun, wow, it stinks. It stinks. Brother Yin, run." Yu had just jumped in front of Yin Nuoxing and was about to hide behind him when her little nose twitched slightly. She seemed to have smelled something extremely disgusting. Her little face suddenly collapsed, and then she started shouting again. Her jade-like hand grabbed Yin Nuoxing and ran away again. Yin Nuoxing didn't have time to react before he was grabbed by the hand and ran away. He was a little confused. Xian and the others also didn't have time to react. They only saw Yin Nuoxing being taken away by a white figure. It wasn't until a few wailing black figures flew past them that they finally reacted. "Hey, that's strange. Could it be that little star was really kidnapped, and he wasn't the one who kidnapped the little lowly?" Yuanxi was also a little confused when he saw Yin Nuoxing being dragged away. Yesterday, he seemed to have said that he was being found. At that time, he thought it was a joke. "What do you mean?" A chill came from behind, causing Yuanxi to shiver. He quickly turned around and suddenly saw a wisp of wine-red and black hair fluttering in the air. When he saw Yishi's eyes that were emitting a substantial murderous aura and coldly staring at him, his handsome face broke out in cold sweat. Little Yishi was angry. Yuanxi smiled bitterly and quickly told everyone what happened last night. Everyone had a strange expression. How could this guy kidnap a little lowly after going out? "Let's go take a look first." Xian waved her hand and said softly. She held Yishi's hand, and then her delicate body flashed as she chased after Yin Nuoxing and the others. When everyone saw this, they quickly followed. The 3 groups of people, 2 chasing and 1 fleeing, unknowingly ran from the rightmost position of Juyuan Mountain Villa to the leftmost position. In the middle, they attracted the attention of countless people. In particular, some people recognized Yuanxi and the others. With the intention of joining in the fun, they quickly chased after them to see what was going on. "You little girl, why are you so naughty?" The 2 of them had just jumped to the top of the loft when a helpless voice suddenly sounded from the sky. There seemed to be some doting in the voice. Moreover, it was the voice of a middle-aged man and was a little magnetic. However, no matter how pleasant the voice was, Yin Nuoxing's expression changed slightly when she heard it. Could this be Yuer's father? She felt a terrifying pressure. When Yuer heard this voice, her pretty face paled a little. She screamed and pulled Yin Nuoxing to turn and run. On the roof in front of them, a black fog suddenly appeared and dissipated very quickly. A figure appeared out of thin air in front of them. This person was wrapped in a black robe. His face had a pair of calm eyes, but it felt as if he had seen through the vicissitudes of life. He had an oppressive aura. When he suddenly appeared, the space was slightly distorted. The appearance of this person made Yuer panic a little. She glanced downstairs, and Mei Mao flashed. She pulled Yin Nuoxing and was about to jump down. However, before it was her turn to jump down, the figure stretched out a hand from the black robe. It turned into a ball of black fog and suddenly reached out toward Yuer and Yishi. The appearance of the big hand was so sudden that Yun Nuoxing could not react in time. She was caught in an instant. Yu was also caught in the hand. She was yelling and screaming, as if she was very unwilling to give up. However, no matter how unwilling she was still caught and brought back to the middle-aged man's side. Yun Nuoxing was also caught along with her. "Master, young miss," The few men in black hurriedly caught up at this time. When they saw the middle-aged man appear, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. They quickly knelt down and stuttered. "Get up. I know this girl's temperament. I don't blame you. It's fine as long as nothing happened." The middle-aged man said indifferently and waved his hand. The black-robed men heaved a sigh of relief as if they had received a death exemption token. They cupped their hands respectfully and disappeared with a sway of their bodies. Yun Nuoxing raised her head and looked at the middle-aged man. However, the middle-aged man did not even look at her. Instead, he lowered his head and stared at Yu, who also lowered her head. The latter pouted and pouted, making the middle-aged man feel a little helpless. "Old Qing, have you found her? Haha, I've long told you not to be too strict with your children. Look, even your daughter doesn't want to talk to you now." After a while, a group of figures suddenly appeared with the black fog. A total of 7 people appeared on the roof of the pavilion. They looked at the middle-aged man in front of them, and then looked at the girl in front of him. One of them could not help but laugh. He walked up and looked at Yu, who lowered her head and muttered. He smiled and said, "How old is your daughter? Is she married yet?" "She's just 22. Marry my ass." The middle-aged man rolled his eyes. Yun Nuoxing looked at this group of people. His eyes flickered slightly, and he frowned. These auras, many images flashed through his mind. The pleasure boat, the black meteorite, the black fire all over the sky. The auras in there seemed to be similar to the auras he sensed in front of him. People of the demon race. When these 4 words rang in his mind, his heart suddenly thumped. When the black meteorite fell 2 days ago, the uncontrollable demon Qi in his soul was slightly surging. Therefore, he was sure that the meteorite was related to the people of the demon race. At this time, the aura that was similar to the meteorite appeared in front of him. "Yu is a member of the demon race?" Yun Nuoxing was a little frightened. He had many thoughts, but he never thought that this little girl was a member of the demon race. Thinking of this, Yun Nuoxing could not help but swallow his saliva. "Damn it, the people around here are all Demon Emperor powerhouses. I'd better run away, quickly stop." Just as Yun Nuoxing took 2 steps forward, the middle-aged man with the slightly magnetic voice suddenly shouted. According to Yun Nuoxing's temperament, he should have immediately rushed out of the light element and left at superluminal speed when this voice appeared. However, this time, he unexpectedly stopped. His left heel had just left the ground when he stopped. His cheeks twitching for a while, Yun Nuoxing stiffly turned around and looked at the middle-aged man. However, the latter did not even look at him. His gaze was fixed on Yu, and his palm was rubbing Yu's head. Perhaps in his opinion, he was not a threat at all? Of course, in his opinion. "Senior, you called for me?" Yun Nuoxing cupped his hands and said respectfully. Yu secretly turned her head. Her big mischievous eyes flickered with a pitiful look, as if she wanted him to save her. This made Yun Nuoxing smile bitterly. He still had to save himself. This time, he was really screwed over by this little girl. His soul power sneaked into the jade slip in the pendant, and he hurriedly transmitted a message to Xian and the others. "Lass, don't rush over. I'm surrounded by the demon race. Play it by ear. Play it by ear." When Xian and the others in the distance received this message, their expressions changed slightly. They looked at each other and nodded. Then, they slowly walked towards Yun Nuoxing. There were 6 demon emperors beside them, so they should be fine. "Are you very close to you?" Finally, after leaving Yun Nuoxing to dry for 10 minutes, the middle-aged demon race man raised his head. A frightening light flashed across his dark eyes, and he stared at Yun Nuoxing indifferently. The 6 paths wheel between his eyebrows rotated slightly, and the spiritual pressure was blocked by him. Yun Nuoxing's expression didn't change. He glanced at Yu and said, "I accidentally bumped into her yesterday." Seeing that Yun Nuoxing didn't move at all, a hint of surprise flashed across the middle-aged demon race man's eyes. However, it was very faint, and it was hidden very well. He didn't let Yun Nuoxing see it. His indifferent gaze swept over Yun Nuoxing for a long time, and finally fixed on his calm eyes. He asked doubtfully, "Human? Human?" As soon as these two words were spoken, the surrounding demon emperors suddenly turned their gazes. A powerful pressure descended from the sky and landed on Yun Nuoxing, causing him to stop breathing for a moment. Yun Nuoxing's figure paused. The powerful pressure fell on his body as if it wanted to push him down and make him kneel down. He clenched his teeth, and a terrifying power boiled in his body. The divine artifact also involuntarily revolved in his body. However, he did not dare to make it too obvious, as he was afraid that someone would recognize it. But this way, his body was slightly bent down. "Old bastard, are you mistaken? How can Brother Yun be a human?" In front of the middle-aged demon emperor, Yu hurriedly turned around. When she saw Yun Nuoxing being suppressed by a few terrifying forces, she jumped up in shock and glared fiercely at her father. She felt a very familiar aura from Yun Nuoxing. She liked his aura very much. How could he be a human? I am indeed a human. I didn't hide it from you. However, I didn't know that you were a member of the demon race in the beginning. Yun Nuoxing smiled bitterly when he heard this. His colorful eyes quietly looked at Yu as he spoke in a slightly apologetic manner. "You really are a human." When they heard him admit it, the surrounding gazes became even sharper. The pressure almost made Yun Nuoxing bend down, but he stubbornly held on. But Brother Yun, your body. There's a slight problem with my body. That's why I have an aura that leans towards the demon race." Seeing the panic on Yu's face, the mischievousness in Mei Mao's eyes disappeared. Yun Nuoxing hurriedly interrupted her and said calmly. However, his fists were clenched tighter and tighter. "Human, you deserve to die." One of the Emperor God experts at the side suddenly took a step forward. A terrifying pressure rose from the ground and pressed down on Yun Nuoxing, causing his body to suddenly sink and his legs to bend. "This is the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa, and blood is not allowed here. You also cannot kill me. I do not know what will happen if you kill me." Yun Nuoxing turned around and looked at the demon emperor, who was releasing his pressure, before he coldly said, "Are you threatening me?" The Emperor God expert from the demon race sneered. He released even more pressure from his body. "Ju Yuan Mountain Villa may not see blood, but it's still possible to torture you. Stupid old man. Hurry up and ask them to stop. If you hurt Brother Yun, no one will play with me. I will hate you." Yu's face was filled with anxiety when she saw Yun Nuoxing's difficult expression. She hurriedly tugged on the sleeve of the middle-aged man in front of her and said fiercely. The middle-aged man looked at her in surprise. However, after a while, he quietly lifted his gaze and looked at Yun Nuoxing. This scene made Yu's delicate body turn cold and her face turn pale. Seeing Yun Nuoxing's uncomfortable expression, Mei Mao was a little anxious. She was the one who brought him out. In the end, was she going to kill him? "Old bastard, I'm warning you one last time. On account of your cultivation, I've already given you 99% of my respect. Don't force me." Yun Nuoxing's eyes were filled with violence when he felt the pressure on his body getting stronger. "You want me to bow? You want me to kneel?" Impossible. He only bowed to those he respected and those who respected him. However, he did not have anyone who was worthy of him kneeling to. No one. You're quite stubborn. I like to see your little boom." The Emperor God expert from the demon race sneered. However, before his sneer fell, an extremely terrifying and violent force suddenly shot up to the sky and tore apart the pressure from the group of Emperor Gods. A starlight pillar suddenly shot up to the sky. The vast starlight storm caused everyone in Ju Yuan Mountain Villa to feel it. They quickly lifted their heads and looked at the place where the starlight exploded. The demon emperors were also stunned by this sudden surge of power. Their hearts skipped a beat, and they actually felt a strong sense of danger. "Sister, Divine King, save me. Murder." When the starlight erupted, a panicked voice instantly spread throughout the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa like a storm, causing everyone to be stunned. Chapter 573. The mighty pillar of starlight was at least 1,000 feet in size. The starlight shone in the sky, making it look like a real star field. Everyone in Juyuan Mountain Villa was shocked. Then, they flew in that direction, obviously wanting to join the fun. This starlight and this panicked cry didn't sound like much to others, but to some people, it sounded a bit different. For example, Empress Jean and the others, therefore, as soon as this shout fell, an extremely violent golden light suddenly shot up into the sky. Following that, there were dozens of similarly violent auras. Colorful lights shone in the entire sky, causing everyone to be shocked. Who lit up this explosive barrel? Why were there so many responses with just one shout? Furthermore, they were all Emperor God experts. Boom! 2 buildings suddenly exploded. Then, streams of flowing light flashed. Almost in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the place where the pillar of starlight disappeared. Empress Jean and the others, as well as Lei Lang and the others, were all there. Dozens of violent Emperor God storms exploded at once, causing the space to crack. The few Emperor God experts of the Demon Clan were also shocked. They were hit by the dozens of forces, and they retreated a few thousand feet in a sorry state. Who? How dare you touch my little divine child? Do you want to die? Come out. Come out. I'll slap you to death. With a wave of her hand, the Golden Empress took out a long halberd that glittered with golden light. The terrifying energy pressure caused everyone to shudder in fear. She had taken out an eternal weapon all of a sudden. She was going to turn the world upside down. When Empress Jean and the others arrived, the middle-aged man was also shocked. He hurriedly shielded you, behind him. However, the auras of the dozens of Emperor Gods were too overbearing. They were still sent flying. They flew for several hundred feet before coming to a stop. After they stabilized themselves, the few experts from the Demon Clan looked at each other in dismay. They even looked at Yun Nuo Xing with fear in their eyes. Then, they cursed silently. They had never thought that they would be able to summon dozens of Emperor God experts from the human clan just because they caught him and wanted to torture him. How powerful was he? What was more terrifying was how did he break free from the bindings just now? Are you okay? Xian supported Yin Nuoxing with her jade-like hand. Seeing how he was panting, she asked hurriedly. Jin Wang and the others also looked at him nervously. How could this boy meet Emperor God experts so easily? Phew! No, I was scared to death. I must have stepped on something when I went out today. I could see people from the Demon Clan just by taking 2 steps. Yin Nuoxing shook his head with a bitter smile as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. Then, he smiled and stuck his tongue out at the beautiful woman who was using the wood element to calm him. Demon, clan, people. Empress Jean gritted her teeth and bit these words so hard that the space was about to collapse. The few Demon Clan experts who saw this shivered. Then, they heard her say word by word fiercely, "You're courting death." Huh? People from the Demon Clan? How arrogant. You came out just in time for the Taiyuan Grand Meeting and want to establish your power? Do you think my family is a soft persimmon that you can pinch as you wish? The great elder of the Fire God Shrine also sneered and suddenly took a step forward. Then, the temperature of the world suddenly increased. However, there was not a single trace of flame in the space, and the temperature rose just like that. The Demon Clan expert who had just put the most pressure on Yun Nuoxing took a step forward and said coldly, "This is Juyuan Mountain Villa. We were also invited to participate in the Taiyuan Grand Meeting. Do you want to ruin the Taiyuan Grand Meeting?" Hearing this, Yun Nuoxing snorted and moved his mouth close to Empress Jin's ear. He whispered something softly. Then, the latter sneered and waved the halberd in his hand, creating a golden storm. He sneered and said, "If there's no blood, it's okay to beat him up. Crippling him doesn't mean he's dead. Beating him into a fool seems to be a good choice." There were many onlookers in the surroundings. It could be said that 80% of the participants of the Taiyuan Grand Meeting had gathered here. There were thousands of high-level god experts, which made Yin Nuoxing dizzy. How could there be so many experts of this level? Those people originally wanted to watch the show, but when they heard the Golden Queen mention the demon race, their expressions changed. Pairs of murderous eyes suddenly turned towards those experts of the demon race, causing their already weak aura to drop even more. This caused them to smile bitterly. It seemed like they had poked a hornet's nest. Spiritual divine body. Suddenly, a sneer sounded, causing everyone's expressions to change slightly. Yin Nuoxing's expression also froze, but he did not panic. He had been forced to call for help. Once he called for help, his identity would be exposed sooner or later with Empress Jean and the others protecting him. After thinking for a while, Yin Nuoxing gently picked Yishi up. Their eyes met gently, and then they smiled and touched their foreheads. Yishi also understood what he wanted to do. This was their last resort. Spiritual divine body? It's him? I didn't expect that after not seeing him for a few years, he would become like this. I can't even recognize him. It seems that only the spiritual divine body can make the 9 divine temples protect him like this. I said it was impossible for this kid not to come. Huh? Yin Nuoxing's expression was calm. It was impossible to find the first person who said those 4 words. There were so many discussions around. So it's you. Hiding. You unpresentable scoundrel. Suddenly, an extremely harsh sneer sounded, causing Yin Nuoxing to frown slightly. He turned his gaze, and, as expected, he saw his old acquaintance, Qi Haoyu, who had been talking about killing him all day. Hide? Why should I hide? Why should I hide? Isn't it because there are too many flies? Who has nothing better to do than to slap a few feces on their body to attract flies? Don't you think it's dirty? You don't think it's dirty, but I do. Yin Nuoxing curled his lips and slowly took off the half-mask in his hand. He looked at Qi Haoyu in the sky and smiled evilly. As for you, who are you? I don't remember. Qi Haoyu's expression slowly became gloomy. It had only been a few years, and this guy said he didn't remember. It was obvious that he didn't bother to pay attention to him and didn't bother to remember him. I'm sorry. I'm too lazy to remember some unnecessary names. It's too brain-burning. Yin Nuoxing sighed and shook his head. After Qi Haoyu heard this, his face suddenly became frighteningly cold. Was this directly admitting to ignoring him? It made him even angrier than ridiculing him. He was also a divine son of a generation with powerful strength, but he was ignored like this. You're arrogant, Qi Haoyu said angrily. Bah! Yin Nuoxing looked at him with contempt, then suddenly realized and said indifferently, You seem to be the turtle egg who has been shouting to fight with me. Come, I'll fulfill your wish. Ah, Qi Haoyu couldn't help but roar. He really couldn't stand being ignored one after another. He, Qi Haoyu, was about to become a character like a passerby. He was the divine son of the Qi family, the young master of the Qi family. Come, I'll fulfill your wish. Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly and put Yishi down. Then, a smear of scarlet runes surged onto his face. Bang! Qi Haoyu was stunned. Suddenly, a terrifying force exploded on his body like a star. The powerful force stuck to his body like maggots, destroying the vitality in his body inch by inch, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His entire body shot out like a meteor and disappeared into the horizon. He didn't even have time to change his expression before he disappeared. This really happened in an instant. It was so fast that everyone didn't have time to react. Even the divine emperors didn't have time to react. That extreme speed exceeded the speed of light by who knew how many times. There was a divine emperor beside Qi Haoyu, but even he didn't have time to react. Yin Nuoxing was still standing in place, holding Yishi in his arms and gently rubbing her head with his palm, as if nothing had happened and he hadn't done it. Haoyu! After a long while, Qi Wei finally reacted. He looked at Qi Haoyu, who had already disappeared into the horizon. Even his aura had disappeared. He couldn't help but turn pale. He glanced at Yin Nuoxing with some fear. He knew that even he couldn't defend against that speed unless he was prepared in advance. The people of the Qi family all looked at Yin Nuoxing with unfriendly expressions, but a moment later, they suddenly flew in the direction where Qi Haoyu had disappeared. It was impossible to settle the score with Yin Nuoxing now. Compared to this, saving people was more important. Qi Haoyu was the young master of the Qi family. He couldn't die like this. Moreover, if this attack was attacked with a divine weapon, the divine emperor's head would be split open. Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment. Thousands of pairs of eyes stared at the scene, but no one saw clearly how Yin Nuoxing made his move. It was as if Qi Haoyu had suddenly flown away, and what they saw was just a simple action of Yin Nuoxing putting Yishi down and picking her up. The experts of the demon clan also gasped. If this attack had been aimed at them, they probably wouldn't have been able to defend against it. No wonder that kid was so arrogant just now. It turned out that not only did he have a powerful background, but his own strength was also unexpectedly terrifying. "Girl, support me a little." Yin Nuoxing blinked and transmitted a message to Xian and Feng, causing the two women's expressions to change slightly. Then, they gently walked forward and leaned against him. No one was suspicious. "Little star, did you overdraw your strength?" However, Yuanxi still saw through it and hurriedly transmitted a message to him. 36 times soul burning, the extreme light element, the full power of space, and the 8th layer of collapsing fist. Even a divine emperor can't block it without prior preparation. "Well, I can only hit this one time. Qi Haoyu is crippled. I really didn't hold back that punch." Yin Nuoxing sighed and transmitted a message to everyone around him, causing Mei Mao, the Golden Empress, to flicker slightly. She also thought that she couldn't block that punch. Perhaps only the people of the Light Temple could defend against it. "I'm not a saint. You've caused trouble for me time and time again. Sai, I've had enough. I'm giving face to the Zhu Yuan Mountain Villa by sparing his life. Let the Qi family slowly cure him. If they can cure him within 10 years, it's my loss." Yin Nuoxing sighed. Soul Blade's cheeks twitched. Why did the last sentence sound so familiar? Yin Nuoxing's gaze was somewhat unfriendly as he scanned the thousands of experts in the sky. At least half of the people here were full of malice towards him. He guessed that the people of the 12-star palaces and the sacred weapon shrine were all here. At least, he seemed to have seen Guyu's shadow, but now he didn't see him. The younger generation who made eye contact with him were all shocked. Those who had said some harsh words were even more unnatural. How could the identity of those who were invited to participate in the Taiyuan Grand Assembly be simple? Naturally, they knew what Yin Nuoxing had done. Although Qi Haoyu had always emphasized divine weapons, only a moron would listen to him. Wasn't it his own ability to activate a divine weapon to such an extent? Moreover, he had just been killed by someone with his bare hands. Yin Nuoxing didn't even seem to move. When such a person looked at them, they were a little nervous. They felt a little afraid from the bottom of their hearts. The people of the Snow Goddess sect were also here at this time. They were watching this farce from a corner. The Snow Python's expression was complicated. Even the man beside him had been persuading him to put down the conflicts and apologize to them. However, he had to admit that such a person was too terrifying. This was a kind of power and influence. Although Yin Nuo Star did not appear in the eyes of the world, he had firmly intimidated most of the people of the younger generation. Even the strong gods felt that he was very oppressive. Yin Nuoxing looked at the Golden Princess and the demons who were still confronting each other and sighed. He walked forward, shook the Golden Princess's arm, and said softly, "Sister, forget it. Let's go back. You're just too tolerant. That's why you always let others bully you. If I were you, I would let those bastards know what it means to be powerful. That day, you hit me so hard that I had to recuperate for 10 years before I could recover. Why are you so magnanimous now?" After Yin Nuoxing finished speaking, the Golden Princess didn't say anything. The Empress sighed gloomily and turned around. She looked at Yin Nuoxing, who had an innocent look on his face. She pinched his nose with her jade-like hand and shook it. Then, she shook her head helplessly. The Empress didn't hide her words. She even deliberately amplified her voice, as if she wanted the people around to hear her. When the people around heard her voice, their expressions changed. They looked at Yin Nuoxing in disbelief. Had this guy really reached such a level? Of course, most people didn't believe her words. After all, everyone knew the strength of an Emperor God. Even if Yin Nuoxing's speed could surprise an Emperor God, speed didn't represent power. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly put on his mask, and said repeatedly that he wanted to retreat. The Golden Princess and the others were helpless. They knew that they couldn't persuade him. Furthermore, he was still acting cute to make them happy. They couldn't fight this battle and could only retreat. "Take care, Yu-er." Before leaving, Yin Nuashing looked at Yu-er, who was still fanning Mei Mao, and transmitted his voice softly. One of them was from the human race, while the other was from the demon race. Although he didn't care about these things, it didn't mean that others didn't care. Chapter 574. After leaving the place where tens of thousands of people were watching, they stopped at the place where Princess Jean and the others had just settled down. They did not really leave Jiyuan Mountain Villa. The Taiyuan Grand Gathering had not really started yet. As soon as he entered the house, Yin Nuashing collapsed on the sofa and lay down softly. His mouth couldn't help but gasp for breath. The soul-burning secret art used a method of burning the soul to obtain double the power, but it also caused great harm to his body. If it wasn't for his physique being different from ordinary people, this body would have already exploded from the powerful force. Brother Nua, the soul-burning incantation has a huge burden. If it is not necessary, it is better not to use it. Yishi sat beside his head and could not help but poke his head with her little hand, sighing softly. When Yin Nuashing collapsed, a group of people exclaimed and surrounded him. He smiled bitterly and hurriedly waved his hand, assuring them that he was really fine. Princess Jean and the others walked to the side, half believing and half doubting. It is rare to have such a grand gathering. There are so many heroes in the world. Don't circle around me. Do what you want to do. Seeing that Zian and the others were still there, Yin Nuashing smiled and waved his hand. Hearing this, Yao Hua and the others chattered for a while, then ran out, as if they suddenly remembered something. Ziyin and the others stayed behind. Yuan Shi and Yu Xiao were whispering to each other in a corner, while Qin Yin was still as quiet as a jade statue. She was sitting only a meter away from them, but she didn't seem to be breathing at all. This was a jade palace, surrounded by lotuses and strange flowers and trees. A faint mist flowed under their feet, as if they had really come to the immortal world. There were many people living in this courtyard, all of whom had come to participate in the Taiyuan Grand Gathering. It was just that the time for the gathering to officially start had not yet arrived. Princess Jean picked a relatively large courtyard, which was more than enough for them to rest. The environment was also much better than the other courtyards. As time passed, more and more people arrived through the air. All of them had powerful auras, and their backgrounds were probably not weak. Some of them were famous figures who had been around for a long time. Rather than calling it a Taiyuan meeting, it would be better to call it a gathering of gods. Yin Nuashing was quietly resting in the courtyard. After the commotion just now, someone actually came to visit him. Moreover, it was a young expert who wanted to see him. This made him feel a little puzzled. However, Yuan Shi and the others guessed that Yin Nuashing's previous battle and his previous battle achievements were probably because someone wanted to pay respects to him. After hearing Yuan Shi's guess, Yin Nuashing rolled her eyes. She didn't have any intention of meeting them and asked Yi Shi to reject them. However, a moment later, Yi Shi ran back. She looked at Yin Nuashing with a strange expression and said, "Brother Na, it's the people of the Snow Goddess School. What are you going to do?" Yin Nuashing was stunned for a moment. She looked at Empress Jean, who was not far away, but the latter just smiled and said, "Deal with it yourself. I'm here." "All right." Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly. She got up and walked towards the door. The group of people she saw at the Heart Lake that day were standing respectfully at the door. As for the snow python, it lowered its head. The young man who was addressed as Young Master Qing was also stunned when he saw Yin Nuashing come out. He was prepared to be rejected. "Young Master Yin, I'm here to apologize for my friend's rudeness that day." Young Master Qing cupped his hands in salute to Yin Nuashing. Yin Nuashing was slightly stunned. She looked at the snow python with its head lowered and understood something. She waved her hand and said, "It's nothing. Everyone loves beauty. His eyes are on his body. I can't do anything about it." Fortunately, there was no conflict. Young Master Yun's magnanimity is extraordinary. I thank you on behalf of the snow python. Young Master Ching cupped his hands respectfully. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. She looked at young Master Ching and said, Brother Ching, let me ask you a question. Young Master Yin, please ask. If I know, I will tell you truthfully. Young Master Ching nodded. Ning Qinxue, is Fairy Ning still around? This name made young Master Ching's body tremble. Even the expressions of the people beside him changed slightly. Very few people knew the name of the founder of the Snow Fairy sect. Even the people in the Snow Fairy sect, if their status was not high, they would not know this information. However, Yin Nuoxing knew. Ancestor. I don't know either. I only know the name. Young Master Ching frowned slightly and then shook his head. I see. Yin Nuoxing also had some speculations. However, she could not help but feel disappointed when it was confirmed. Seeing Yin Nuoxing's emotions, young Master Ching blinked and thought for a while. Then, he said hesitantly, the sect leader of the Snow Fairy sect is also here. Young Master Yin, why don't you? Yes, that's what Sister Jean wants to do. I will talk to her. You guys can go back first. Yin Nuoxing nodded. It was useless for him to visit alone. It was better to leave this matter to Sister Jean and the others. Young Master Ching nodded and cupped his hands respectfully. Then, he left with his people. Yin Nuoxing also returned to the hall. She ran to Princess Jean and softly told her what happened just now. All right, I'll take you there later. The Golden Princess nodded with a smile. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Then, she smiled bitterly and said, Can I not go? This is about your own background. Why don't you have any motivation? The Golden Princess could see the unwillingness and tiredness in his eyes. She was a little surprised and pinched his handsome face with her jade-like hands. I don't know. I just don't have any motivation. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Princess Jean and the others looked straight at him. This kid was getting weirder and weirder. This made him smile even more bitterly. Everything depended on one's heart. In the end, he still agreed to make a trip, albeit somewhat reluctantly. While they were talking, people kept coming in and out of the Jade Palaces. A small number of experts started to wander around the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa. Zhang family of the Divine Prefecture's Western region. Demon God Temple of the Divine Prefecture's Southern Plains. Battle King Ji of the Kuan Yuan region's Ji family is here. Tianpeng family of the Jiuan region is here. Army of the Qian Yuan region is here. The arrival of the important figures was called out one after another. Numerous war chariots and precious beasts descended from the sky, heading towards this resting area. There are so many big shots. Their mounts are so precious. I can be sure that people from all 5 regions are here. Yuanxi sat in the hall and listened to the announcements. He chatted with Yin Nuoxing. The Phaseless Cult hold a large-scale event once every 10,000 years. It wouldn't be strange if all the big forces in the realm of the gods came, Yu Xiao said softly. And then? What are they here for? Yin Nuoxing asked. Normally, the event is held once every 10,000 years. It's a gathering for the strong cultivators of the younger generation to do things by themselves. They either learn from each other or get to know people. But this time, the event was held much earlier. I think they have something important to announce, Yu Xiao said. Something important? Yin Nuoxing frowned. Something important? The only thing that could be considered important in the realm of the gods was the birth of the demon and monster realms. It's probably those 2 important things, if there are no other accidents. Yuanxi smiled and said what was on his mind. A white light suddenly appeared on the seat at the side, startling the few of them. They quickly turned their gazes and saw that Xiao Bai had returned. It was still eating something in its mouth. Little White. Seeing him return, Yin Nuoxing smiled. Then, she remembered something and quickly told him about Ning Qinxue. You're talking about Ning Qinxue? I remember. Little White licked his fingers and licked the corner of his mouth with his tongue. Then, he grinned and looked at Yin Nuoxing with reminiscence in his eyes. He said, Ewing met that little girl when he was traveling in the Taiyuan region. He passed by a wild place and saw her lying in a pool of blood. He saved her life. When she woke up, he sent her back. Little White took a cup and gulped down 2 mouthfuls of water. He sighed and continued. At that time, I was already traveling with Yuing. We followed him everywhere. Then, 100 years later, we went to the Ganyuan region and coincidentally came across a relic. There, we met Ning Chinchue again. The two of us fought over an ancient scroll. At first, we didn't recognize each other. But later, Ning Chinchue recognized Yuing first, or she recognized me, and then recognized Yuing, or was it Yuing who recognized Ning Chinchue? Anyway, they just met again in the ruins. After a fight, they recognized each other. After that, the two of them had a passionate conversation. Something like, long time no see, I miss you so much. What happened back then? Will it kill you to pick the main points? Everyone's face darkened. Ahem. Little White coughed and said, then I'll omit 10 million words from the above scenes. Later, Ning Chinchue followed Yuing to train. Ning Chinchue had always been secretly in love with Yuing. Yuing also liked Ning Chinchue, but he had his own difficulties. Then, we'll omit a few 100 million years. One day, Yuing sealed me, the azure dragon, and the black tortoise. The phoenix hadn't woken up at that time. When he sealed me, Ning Chinchue was still with Yuing. I don't know what happened after that. I only know that Yuing had a destiny that he had to face. Now he's dead. Sigh. Little White let out a long sigh and shook his head helplessly. There was a tinge of sadness in his silver-blue, tiger-like eyes. As for Ning Chinchue, she should still be alive. It's only been 3 eras. Back then, she and Yuing both drank the blood of gods. She won't die so easily. Moreover, she followed Yu Ying's footsteps and stepped into that level. She won't die so easily. Little White's words stirred up a huge wave. Yuan Shi, Lei Lang, and the rest gasped. Yin Nuoxing was still all right. He had seen gods. If not 7, he had at least seen 3, although one of them was a shadow. Is she really my grandmother? Yin Nuoxing frowned and wasn't too sure. It's possible. As for whether it's accurate, you'll have to ask her yourself. Little White nodded. Seeing that he was a little nervous, he patted his back with his small palm and said with a smile, relax. If you're really related to Yuing, Ning Chinchue will treat you well. Oh, since you've said this, I'll have to say something. Since you've seen the memories in the pendant, you must have seen Yu Ying's long-cherished wish, right? Little White's expression suddenly became a little serious as he said in a deep voice. Yin Nuoxing nodded. He had seen it. That was right. It was a very heavy goal. As his son, you have to fulfill his long-cherished wish. Of course, I won't force you. I just hope that you can fulfill his long-cherished wish. After all, he even left the pendant to you, Little White said in a deep voice. I know. Yin Nuoxing nodded again. Long-cherished wish. Xian was a little confused. Yuing is looking for someone. Someone who has disappeared for countless years. Or rather, a god. Yin Nuoxing nodded and sighed. God! Everyone gasped in shock. Who? Yuanshi was also very confused. He was even a little frightened. Looking for a god, and a person who had disappeared for countless years. You know it too. Yin Nuoxing sighed and took a sip of tea. After pondering for a while, he softly said the name that made Xian, Yuan Shi, and Yu Xiao's body stiffen. The forbidden heavenly god from the primordial era, Quarter Moon. Chapter 575. Taboo, the taboo heavenly god from the primordial age. His existence had almost been completely erased, and not a single trace of him was left behind. There were no ancient books that recorded his deeds, and he did not exist in anyone's memories or records. Only his name was known. Even Ziyi did not know him. Let's put these things aside. We'll talk about them when we have the chance. Yin Nuoxing waved his hand. He was too lazy to talk about such matters. It was almost impossible to find a person who had died countless years ago and was unrecorded. Everyone smiled bitterly. They had all guessed what Yin Nuoxing was thinking. This matter was also something that was almost impossible. Qin Yin sighed and took a sip of tea. Then Mei Mao paused. With a flip of her hand, she took out a jade slip and poured her soul power into it. Then, she was stunned for a moment. After putting down the jade slip, Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuoxing and said softly, "Young Master Yin, my father is here. Go ahead. Go wherever you want. You don't have to ask me." Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Then, he smiled and took a sip of tea. Qin Yin smiled bitterly. Knowing that he had misunderstood, she added softly, "Father wants to see you." Puffed. As soon as she said that, Yin Nuoxing spat out his tea. His eyes were a little dazed as he stared at Qin Yin. When he saw her nod, he smiled bitterly. Now? Must I go?" Qin Yan's father was the patriarch of the Qin family. She had said that she was greeting him last time. He did not know why she was looking for him now. "Father wants to see you." Qin Yan blinked at Mei Mao, then lowered his head. Mei Mao looked at him hopefully. "Can you do me a favor?" "Hey, what are you saying?" Yin Nuoxing quickly waved her hand and said with a wry smile, "We're all friends. We've been wandering around together. It's only right for me to pay a visit to your father. I'm just a little tired. I wanted to have a good rest." After that, he poured himself another cup of tea and took a big gulp. He stood up and slapped his cheeks hard with both hands. Then, he took a deep breath and looked at Qin Yin with a smile. "Let's go." Hearing this, Qin Yin and Mei Mao were overjoyed. Their eyes sparkled as they looked at him. They nodded and walked out of the hall. Yin Nuoxing and the others slowly followed behind. They even greeted the Golden Princess before they left. Outside the courtyard, there were many luxurious jade palaces. Between the palaces, there were many tables made of precious wood. Between the heaven and earth, there were many experts flying back and forth. Yin Nuoxing seemed to have seen the fairies of the Yu family busy here, delivering all kinds of delicacies and fine wines. The Yu family is also helping to entertain you. Yu Xiao explained with a smile when she saw the confusion on his face. Yin Nuoxing suddenly understood. The Phaseless sect was not the only host of the Taiyuan Grand Gathering. There were other big forces that came to help. The Yu family was one of them. They walked around the pavilions and palaces. After walking around for a long time, they stopped in front of a very magnificent palace. Qin Yin raised her head and looked at the magnificent palace. She took a deep breath. Thinking about the information she received in the jade slip, her face blushed slightly. She nodded as if to encourage herself. Then, she turned around and looked at Yin Nuoxing. She nodded at him and walked into the palace first. Yin Nuoxing and the others quickly followed behind. The atmosphere in the hall was very relaxed. The people of the Qin family were chatting and laughing. A middle-aged man wearing a golden robe with black edges sat at the head of the hall. He would chat with the people below from time to time. However, his eyes were mostly looking at the door, as if he was waiting for something. "Father!" A clear and alluring voice suddenly rang out from outside the hall. Everyone raised their heads, and when they saw Qin Yin, who had gracefully walked into the hall, everyone was overjoyed. "Little girl, you left for 4 to 5 years without leaving a message. Finally, you are willing to come back." The middle-aged man in the golden robe looked at Qin Yin and smiled dotingly. Then he waved his hand. Qin Yin understood and walked closer. She lowered her head slightly and whispered, "My daughter is getting more and more beautiful." The middle-aged man in the golden robe stretched out his hand and rubbed her head gently. He chuckled, and his eyes were filled with kindness and doting. "Where's the little guy? Why didn't you invite him?" Qin Yan's expression changed slightly when she heard the middle-aged man's words. She took a deep breath and turned around. Her red lips parted slightly as she whispered to the outside. Seeing her actions, everyone turned their gazes to the entrance. A moment later, a young man with colorful hair and wearing a black trench coat slowly walked in with a calm expression on his face. He looked at the middle-aged man, whose gaze had become much more profound after seeing him. He glanced at Qin Yin, who was standing beside the middle-aged man, and immediately understood what was going on. He took a deep breath, took off his mask, clasped his fist, and greeted the middle-aged man, Patriarch Qin. "Haha, heroes come from the young. It's better to meet you in person than to hear rumors." The middle-aged man stared at Yin Nuoxing for a while. Then he smiled and stood up. He said softly, "My name is Qin Hai. You are familiar with Yin, and have helped her before. She has been under your care all these years. If you don't mind, you can call me Uncle." Hearing this, Yin Nuoxing scratched his head and nodded. He said softly, Uncle Qin. Patriarch Qin smiled and nodded. His deep eyes became calm again. He looked at Yin Nuoxing with a trace of admiration in his eyes. Then he smiled and said, I heard from Yin that you have grasped the power of space. Is that true? Yin Nuoxing turned his head slightly to look at Qin Yin, who was standing next to him. When she met his gaze, she actually seemed a bit nervous. She even lowered her head, and her usual calmness and tranquility completely vanished. Rolling his eyes at her, Yin Nuoxing looked at Patriarch Qin, who had walked up to him, and nodded. He stretched out his hand, and a silver blue energy flew up and down on his palm. Then it condensed into a phoenix and let out a cry towards the sky. Tisk TSK. You have the strength of a demonic rank. You have grasped the power of space that only a demonic rank can come into contact with. Moreover, the way you use it is already equivalent to the power of a dark god expert. Patriarch Qin looked at the phoenix condensed from the power of space and chuckled. He looked at Yin Nuoxing with a little more interest. Yin Nuoxing blushed with shame. He had only shown the power of space. How could he see it so clearly? You were the one who did that in the godly Tiger Mountain range, right? Patriarch Qin laughed again. Yin Nuoxing's face darkened. He turned to Qin Yin and looked at her helplessly. In the end, Qin Yin hurriedly waved her hand. She was so anxious that sweat flowed down her face. She quickly opened her red lips and mouthed, as if to say that she didn't say it. Haha, it didn't tell me. It was just my guess. The Qin clan lord laughed. His gaze became even more profound, causing Yin Nuoxing to smile bitterly. In the end, he could only nod his head. This fellow was too good at guessing. Could it be because of what happened in the Ghost Chi Forest? Patriarch Qin was a little startled when he saw him nod. He had just made a random guess. After eliminating the possibility of a battle between divine emperors and the beast tide at that time, he thought of the incident in the Ghost Chi Forest. Then, he linked it to Yin Nuoxing. Patriarch Qin smiled and walked 2 rounds on the spot. Then, he returned to the main seat and patted the seat beside him. He smiled and said, Come. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Even the other members of the Qin family in the hall were stunned. Patriarch Qin really wanted a rope in Yin Nuoxing? Yin Nuoxing was a little nervous. He looked at Qin Yin again. She was also a little confused, but she still gave him a reassuring look. Only then did Yin Nuoxing walk over and slowly sit down. What do you think of Yin As soon as he sat down, Patriarch Qin asked this question. It shocked Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yin so much that their heads exploded. Yin Nuoxing jumped up in shock. Qin Yin blushed and quickly lowered her head. She looked like a little girl. Her beauty was suffocating. Patriarch Qin smiled faintly when he saw Yin Nuoxing's reaction. He pressed Yin Nuoxing down and said with a smile, I'm just asking. Yin Nuoxing heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. However, he looked at Qin Yin, who was standing next to him. He blinked and blurted out, Quiet. Clan Lord Qin was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. This was the most unexpected answer he had ever heard. Those who had come to propose marriage to Qin Yin had all talked about her, as if she was a fairy from the heavens. However, Yin Nuoxing had said the most direct word, which was just like her personality. They talked about other things. However, Patriarch Qin did not mention the previous question, which made both of them heave a sigh of relief. You two can go to the back. We old guys still have some things to discuss. Patriarch Qin smiled. Qin Yin heaved a sigh of relief again. She nodded and gave Yin Nuoxing a look. Then they walked out of the hall. By the way, little brother, do you know why the Qin family was looking for you back then? Patriarch Qin suddenly asked an old question when they were about to leave the hall. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Then he shook his head. This was what he wanted to know. The 9 Deities Temple was looking for him because he was suspected to be a member of the Chief Hall Master's faction. However, he had no idea why the Qin family and the Xin family were looking for him. Patriarch Qin revealed an amused and surprised smile. Then, he waved his hand and asked them to leave quickly. In the garden behind the hall, Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yin were strolling side by side on a small path. Qin Yin turned her head and looked at Yin Nuoxing, whose handsome face was very calm. She suddenly opened her red lips and said, Father was just joking. Don't take it to heart. Yin Nuoxing's footsteps paused. He turned his head and looked straight at her. In his colorful eyes, there was a hint of playfulness and laughter. He said, "Are you joking?" Qin Yan's delicate body trembled as she was stared at by those clear and playful eyes. A trace of blush appeared on her beautiful face. Her jade-like hands clenched her black dress tightly, and she nodded gently. Yin Nuoxing stretched out his hand and slowly moved it towards her beautiful face. When Qin Yan saw it, her breathing and heartbeat became more rapid. It was like a manic drum that kept ringing. Even Mei Mao was slightly confused and puzzled. She looked at the palm that was getting closer and closer. She was very nervous. It was quiet all around. Even the two suns had quietly hidden away. A gentle breeze blew past, causing the long black hair and colorful hair to gently sway. The strange fragrance of flowers followed the petals and drifted away. This scene was tranquil and unique. Just when Qin Yan thought that he was going to reach out and touch her face, Yin Nuoxing suddenly bent his finger and flicked it on her white forehead. Her heart trembled. Although it didn't hurt, it was a little inexplicable. "There are some things that I won't know if you don't tell me clearly." Yin Nuoxing smiled. Then, he lifted his foot and walked towards the small path again, leaving Qin Yan alone in the wind. After a while, Yin Nuoxing stood in the distance and waved at her. Only then did Qin Yan react. Mei Mao was a little embarrassed. She glared at the figure in the distance and stomped her legs on the ground. She pouted coquettishly and jogged to catch up. There was a small lake behind the garden. It seemed to be connected to the celestial lake. Wisps of celestial aura lingered around it, hiding the scenery in the mist. It was like a paradise on earth. "Sister Yin, you're back." Just when the two of them stood in front of the lake, a gentle and light voice came from the forest behind them. The two of them turned around and saw a petite figure running towards them. Qin Yan couldn't help but smile. The girl looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a pair of light green clothes. Her skin was smooth and creamy, and her slender legs were outlined by the long pants. Her delicate body was curvaceous. When she saw Qin Yan, Mei Mao, who seemed to have seen all kinds of brilliant colors, was a little happy. Her eyebrows were like willows, and her celestial face was full of joy and excitement. As soon as the girl came out of the forest, she ran to Qin Yan and plunged into the latter's arms. She couldn't help but say in a sweet voice, "Sister Yin, I missed you. I missed you. Why didn't you come back for so many years?" "Sister, you were kidnapped by a bad guy. That bad guy didn't let you come back. It wasn't easy for me to find a chance to escape." Qin Yan giggled and hugged the girl in her arms. Mei Mao rolled her eyes at Yin Nuoxing. Her words seemed to be hinting at something. Yin Nuoxing blushed with shame. What was this girl talking about? Let me introduce you to someone. This is young Master Yin Nuoxing. This is my younger sister, Yin Nuoxing." Qin Yan smiled. The last sentence was naturally directed at Yin Nuoxing. As soon as she said that, Yin Nuoxing and the girl were stunned. They quickly looked at each other and then widened their eyes. "Big brother? Little Yin?" Chapter 576. Gentleness and astonishment intertwined as the two voices spiraled into the sky. As the voices spread, the sunlight in the sky seemed to inadvertently become a little more intense. The sounds of insects chirping could also be heard in the forest. Even the fish couldn't help but jump on the surface of the water. The air seemed to have spread out between the two pairs of eyes that met. The moment the two voices of astonishment and surprise rang out, Qin Yan's beautiful face suddenly stiffened. Mei Mao's face also quickly filled with astonishment. Her lily-white hand paused in midair. Qin Yan's cheeks twitched. She seemed to have thought of something. Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuoxing in disbelief. There couldn't be such a coincidence in this world, right? 12 years ago, when little Yi's family came back, it was a grand elder of the family who personally went to fetch them. She didn't know how long the journey was during that time. At that time, she was only focused on cultivating. Even when they came back, she only came out to meet them once. She only saw little Yi a year later. After that, she guided little Yi in her cultivation. During one of their chats, Little Yia inadvertently mentioned that she had an older brother who was wandering outside. She asked Qin Hai to help her find him, but he was never able to find him. Her older brother seemed to be called Yin Nuashing. However, after a period of time, little Yia seemed to have forgotten about this matter. She herself had also forgotten that when she met Yin Nuashing later, he came from a Nine Deities temple and had the identity of a member of the Nine Deities temple. Therefore, she had never thought in that direction. But now, was this Yin Nuashing really little Yia's older brother? Father, where did the Qin family bring back the direct descendants from? Qin Yin couldn't help but take out a jade slip and hurriedly send a voice transmission to Qin Hai, a remote city in the Sourcepeak region. I think it's called Star Spirit City. It's rare to see you concerned about such things. What's wrong? Qin Hai's voice sounded from the jade slip. How long did it actually take to come back? Qin Yin asked hurriedly. Back then, when your Uncle Guang brought that group of people back, the journey seemed to be a little slow. After all, there were quite a lot of people. It took about 5 years for them to reach the city with the transportation portal. Later, they used the transportation portals one after another to return. When they came to China, it took them another year to return to the Qin family. Yes, that's right. Qin Hai was also counting slowly on his fingers. Qin Yin suddenly came to a realization. She quickly said that it was fine, and then put away the jade slip. At that time, Xian had said that Star Spirit City is the birthplace of Little Star. This seemed to be true. In other words, that Qin clan member that day was from that branch of the Qin clan outside, and the person who was brought back was also from there. Qin Yin completely understood. The Star Spirit City's Qin clan emblem she saw that day was a little familiar. Now that she thought about it, wouldn't it be the same as the Qin clan's emblem if she modified it a little? Everything started to connect. It was most likely that Yun Nua planet remembered it wrongly, little Yu. Qin Yu's mind trembled slightly. This voice was so familiar that it seemed to have penetrated deep into her soul. It had accompanied her through the days of leaving a familiar place and living in a strange place. Even though she was far away from Taiyuan region and had never seen that person again, this voice had long been deeply imprinted in her heart. No matter what, she would never forget it. The once young girl had now grown up. She also knew that her biological brother would never return. Yin Nuashing had become the most unforgettable thing in her heart. Big. Brother? Brother. Her slender, jade-like neck rolled, and on her fairy-like face that seemed to be born from the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, 2 sparkling and translucent teardrops slid down. Her eyes, which were usually calm and even cold, were currently filled with heartbreaking ripples. Her bright eyes stared fixedly at the colorful-haired youth. The figure in her memory slowly overlapped with the person in front of her. There seemed to be no similarities, but they all seemed to be the same. Big Brother had changed. He had become handsome. Little Yu couldn't even recognize him. He was even somewhat beautiful. Big Brother was really like a fairy. Big Brother. Breaking free from Qin Yan's embrace, Qin Yu hurriedly wiped away the rolling tears on her face. She gently turned her ankle, stomped on the ground, and fiercely plunged into Yun Nuashing's embrace. Her entire small face was buried in his chest. Her jade hands were tightly wrapped around his back, hugging him tightly. She was afraid that this was just a dream. When she woke up, he would be gone. Caught off guard, Yin Nuashing grinned. He was very excited and also felt a little warm. He seemed to recall that time. More than 10 years had passed. The little girl from back then had finally grown into a slender and elegant woman. She was so beautiful that he couldn't recognize her. Regardless of her temperament, strength, or appearance, she could become a goddess in the hearts of countless people. She wasn't inferior to her sister in any way. However, the moment she recognized him, she directly flew towards him. Yin Nuashing also understood that no matter how much she had changed, she would still be that little girl who liked to follow behind him and call him Big Brother nonstop. It was as if she would never grow up. Yin Nuashing gently hugged the little girl who had buried her face in his chest. He took a light breath, and the 6 wings on his back slowly extended. Then, they gently covered the front of his body, covering the little girl's petite body as if he wanted to melt her into his body. He could feel the suppressed feelings in little Yaya's heart. The feelings that had been accumulated for more than 10 years exploded all at once. This feeling made his eyes heat up. He didn't have any relatives and came to this world alone. He didn't have a past, but he felt a faint sense of kinship from little Yaya. He missed it very much. Qin Yin, who was standing at the side, sniffled. Mei Mao also felt gratified as she looked at the siblings who had reunited. Although the two of them had only known each other for 2 years, the feelings they had for each other had become stronger day by day under the erosion of time. At this moment, it was time to make it manifest. After a long while, Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yu gradually calmed down and released their arms. Yin Nuoxing smiled and rubbed Qin Yu's head. He said gently, "The little brat from back then has now grown into a great beauty. Big brother is the one. You've changed so much that you can't recognize you. You've grown into a fairy." Pursed her lips and lowered her head, allowing him to play with her hair. Mei Mao couldn't hide the happiness in her eyes. "Big brother, have you found a fairy's home? Have you been well these past few years?" The two of them spoke at the same time. Then they were stunned. They looked at each other and chuckled. "I went back to Xingling City twice, but I didn't see you. The Qin family's residence was in ruins. I thought that it would be difficult to see you again in this lifetime." Yin Nuoxing rubbed Qin Yu's head and said gently, "Not long after Big Brother left, someone from the Qin family found us and brought us back to the Zhu family. After many years on the road, we finally arrived at the Qin family in the western region of the Divine Prefecture." Qin Yu's soft words made Yin Nuoxing frown. Was the Zhu family of the Qin family in Xingling City really the Qin family of the 8 ancient families? At that time, he still felt that it was impossible. The 8 ancient families didn't seem to be related at all. The distance between the two regions was very far. Moreover, he didn't feel that little Yu and Qin Yin had any similar bloodline power. Seeing Yin Nuoxing's doubtful gaze turn to her, Qin Yin blinked at Mei Mao and said softly, "Yu's bloodline was indeed separated from the Qin family for many years. As for the reason, I once asked Father, but he refused to tell me. However, she's been brought back now. She's a direct descendant of the Qin family." "Thank you." Yin Nuoxing nodded. He looked at Qin Yin with a gentle gaze, making her flustered. "What are you thanking me for? I didn't do it. I only taught you cultivation. Moreover, you've never mentioned this word to Xian and Yuanxi." Qin Yin twirled her hair. Mei Mao's eyes flickered. "Yes, I was rude. However, if the Qin family didn't take Yu and her family away, you and I have seen what happened there." Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly. "Yes." Qin Yin nodded. After thinking for a while, she said, "Also, Yu and her family were delayed on the road for about 6 years. Conservatively speaking, it's been almost 18 years since you left the Qin family in Xingling City. 18 years." Little Moon and Mei Mao looked at the two, who seemed a little strange. Suddenly, they blinked. Then, they stared at Yin Nuoxing and tried to call out softly, "Brother-in-law." The two were stunned. Their faces turned red, and they hurriedly waved their hands to deny it. Qin Yin shook her head hurriedly. Mei Mao's eyes flickered. She said angrily, "You child, what nonsense are you saying?" Yin Nuoxing coughed dryly. She pinched Little Moon's face and asked softly, "Is Uncle Qin Hui well?" "Yes. Father has the support of the family's resources. He's already a devil rank expert. He misses you very much. He said that you've suffered a lot outside by yourself. He also told me some things about Big Brother. He said that Big Brother is an amazing person." Qin Yu said with a smile, "Why do I feel like I'm the only one who's kept in the dark?" Qin Yin couldn't help but sigh when she heard what she said. Yin Nuoxing spread out his hands. "Who told you to not pay attention to what's going on outside? Uncle Hui is in the Qin residence. If you have time, you should come to the Qin residence. Father will also be very happy." Qin Yin looked at him and said softly. Yin Nuoxing's eyes turned. Suddenly, he teased, "Become a live-in son-in-law." This sentence made Qin Yan's face turn extremely red. Her delicate body trembled in anger. She couldn't help but stomp her little feet on the ground. Her beautiful eyes glared fiercely at Yun Nuashing. In the end, she saw that he was looking at her very gently. She hurriedly lowered her head. This guy. No wonder Xian always said that he liked to tease girls. Today, it was her turn to be teased. Qinyan suddenly had a flash of inspiration. She recalled a time when she chatted with Xian about how to prevent Little Star from teasing her. Recalling what Xian said, Qinyan took a deep breath. The redness on her beautiful face was slightly suppressed. Only a faint blush remained. She was stunningly beautiful. Her misty Mei Mao stared straight at Yun Nuashing. She smiled and said, I can consider it. Perhaps the Qin family will have a branch with the surname Yun in the future. But looking at you, the chances of father marrying me off are higher. Hearing that she actually agreed, Yun Nuashing was stunned. His cheeks twitched as he stared at Mei Mao's calm and serious eyes. He couldn't help but feel a little awkward. For a moment, he was stunned. Seeing that he was really stunned, Qinyan snickered in her heart. It turned out that Xian's teachings were really effective. Seeing his embarrassed look, Qinyan couldn't help but curl her lips, as if announcing her victory. Yun Nuashing's colorful eyes caught this scene. He narrowed his eyes. He felt that something was wrong. This girl wasn't usually like this. Numerous scenes flickered within his mind, and in the end, it stopped at a dark violet figure, causing him to be unable to help but roll his eyes. This little girl had definitely received Ziyan's teachings, and it caused him to be teased instead after failing to tease her. Thinking of this, Yun Nuashing snorted in his heart. He grinned, reached out his hands, and pulled Qinyan into his arms. He held her soft little hand with one hand and even clasped them together. Then he smiled slyly and said, Really? Qinyan was shocked by this sudden scene. When she came back to her senses, she saw that the two of them were tightly pressed against each other. In particular, her voluptuous breasts were tightly pressed against his warm chest. It made her body heat up with a bang. A crimson red spread from her neck to her entire body. As the goddess of the Qin family, the young master of the Qin family, she was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. When had she ever been so close to a man's body? Even when they were traveling, she always kept a certain distance from him. She had never been so close to him. Every time she saw him being intimate with Xian and Fenger, she couldn't help but blush. Moreover, she was the one being intimate with him this time. Qinyan only felt a gush of hot air rush in her head, causing her entire body to heat up. She felt a little dizzy. Little Moon, who was at the side, cried out in shock. Then, she hurriedly retreated. She covered her eyes with her two little hands, but her fingers were spread apart. She stared at the scene through the gaps between her fingers. She never thought that Sister Yin, who was known as pure and holy in the Qin family, would be like this today. Could it be that she really had to change the way she addressed him in the future? She couldn't call him Big Brother anymore. She had to call him brother-in-law. Young Master Yin, you can't. Qinyan was so embarrassed that she was about to cry. She was just praising Xian earlier, but now she was scolding her in her heart dozens of times. She had indeed followed what this girl had taught her, but in the end, Yun Nuashing had taken it seriously. You're too soft. I can't hear you. Yun Nuashing let out a sinister laugh. The hand that was hugging her slender waist was still slightly exerting force. The two soft lumps of flesh squeezed against her chest until they became two flat balls. Her head was even slightly lowered, seeing that he seemed to be serious. Qinyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She wanted to struggle, but her body didn't have any strength. She watched as that handsome face that was somewhat feminine came closer and closer to her. He actually closed Mei Mao's eyes. Yun Nuashing was also stunned. He really wanted to ask her to open her eyes. If she closed her eyes, he wouldn't be able to control himself. Just as the two of them were an inch away from kissing, a light cough suddenly sounded in this quiet forest by the lakeside. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing Yun Nuashing and Qinyan to separate as if they had been electrocuted. Their gazes followed the source of the sound, only to see a middle-aged man dressed in a golden robe with black edges standing not far away. That face belonged to the head of the Qin family, Qinyan's father, Qin Hai. It's over. I've gone overboard. Damn it, this time, I really can't clear my name even if I jump into the East China Sea. Yin Nuoxing's handsome face immediately collapsed. This adultery had come too quickly. When Qin Yin saw Qin Hai, her already red cheeks became even redder, as if they were about to burn. The flustered Mei Mao looked at Qin Hai and Yin Nuoxing and didn't know what to say. The two of them were teasing each other, and now that Qin Hai had jumped out, wouldn't their pretense become real? My daughter has grown up and will eventually get married. Little brother, I'll have to trouble you to take care of my good-for-nothing daughter in the future. Qin Hai looked at Qin Yin and sighed. His voice contained mixed emotions, helplessness, and relief. Even though he was Qin Yin's father, this was the first time he had seen Qin Yin so close to a young man. Fortunately, this young man had a powerful background and was not a simple person. More importantly, Qin Yin liked him, so there was nothing more to say. This matter was settled. Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yin looked at each other awkwardly. What should they do? Chapter 577. In the forest by the lakeside, Qin Hai looked at the two people standing together and couldn't help but chuckle. No matter how he looked at them, they were pleasing to the eye. He couldn't help but nod his head. Then, he saw Qin Yu at the side and seemed to have acknowledged each other. Only then did he walk out. He originally wanted to say something, but it seemed like he didn't need to. It wasn't easy being a third wheel. Yinner, do your best. Qin Yin gritted her teeth. She originally wanted to say it out loud, but when she saw Qin Hai slip away and leave a message for her, she immediately froze. Mei Mao didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she looked at the forest. I've gone too far. Yin Nuoxing also didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked in the direction Qin Hai had left. He looked awkwardly at Qin Yin, whose expression was uncertain. Seeing him look awkwardly at her, Qin Yin took a few deep breaths, but she realized that she couldn't calm herself down. If the person standing in front of her was someone she didn't know and didn't have any interactions with, she would definitely be able to calm down very quickly. Even if her father saw that scene, the problem was that she knew this person and often talked about this bad guy with Qin Hai. There were some vague feelings in her heart, which made it impossible for her to calm down. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Qin Yin pouted coquettishly. Her pretty face was crimson red as she hammered Yin Nuoxing's chest with her small fists. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said, "How am I going to explain this to my father now? Once the news reaches the Qin family, Mother will force me to get engaged. No, based on Father's attitude towards you, he might have already informed Mother. It's over. This, that." Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. This was really a tragedy. However, what surprised him even more was that this little girl, who was usually very calm, was currently so flustered that she didn't know what to do. She was like a little girl who was being forced into marriage, crying and laughing at the same time. This kind of goddess seemed to have a different flavor. What should I do? Qin Yin squatted down weakly and covered her face with her hands. Even at this moment, her face was still red. Go and make things clear. Yin Nuoxing scratched her head. She was also a little puzzled. She had walked on a tightrope to the end, but she was suddenly pushed by someone. This didn't feel too good. Do you want to break off your relationship with the Qin family? Father will beat you to death if you tell him. Qin Yin smiled bitterly. Based on how much her father loved her, if he still said, "There's nothing between us," after seeing this scene, he would definitely be asking for a beating. At this moment, Little Moon also felt that something was wrong. She trotted all the way over. After Yin Nuoxing said these things, not knowing whether to laugh or cry, Mei Mao flashed slightly and then directly sat on the ground, laughing nonstop. The two people's cheeks twitched, and they gave each of them a good beating. This made Little Moon hold her head and wail. Seeing this, Yin Nuoxing's heart ached again. She hurriedly hugged her and rubbed her head. The three of them sat like this for an entire afternoon. It was only when Xian worriedly sent a message through a jade slip that Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yin reacted. They looked at each other and sighed bitterly. They were supposed to reunite and reminisce about the past. How did it suddenly turn out like this? Qin Yan's heart was very complicated. She had talked about Yin Nuoxing more than once in a message with Qin Hai. More or less, There was a tone of admiration in her voice. Her father also admired Yin Nuoxing very much. Moreover, he had the Nine Deities Temple behind him, which was a very good home. She also admitted that she more or less had some vague feelings for Yin Nuoxing, but it was only to the extent of being vague. It wasn't to the extent of being infatuated with Xian. Perhaps it was just a faint feeling. However, Yin Nuoxing was a man who was so outstanding that it was abnormal. He was handsome, strong, had a high status, and treated people gently. It was easy for people to fall in love with him. She, Qin Yin, had accompanied him for a few years. Could it be that she couldn't escape this fate? Yin Nuoxing, on the other hand, was thinking about how to solve this problem. He didn't think about anything else. Let me solve this problem. Let's go out first. Don't let Xian worry. Qin Yin sighed. Her breath was full of many emotions, and then she shook her head helplessly. Qin girl. Yin Nuoxing was stunned for a moment. He quickly grabbed her arm and said softly, "Don't do anything stupid. If something happens, just put the blame on me." Hearing this, Qin Yin's heart also moved. The change in the way he addressed her and the words, "I'll take responsibility for everything," warmed her heart. This was his personal charm, wasn't it? Just like how he treated Xian and his friends. He would always put others in a safe place and take risks himself. Yin, little star. For some reason, Qin Yin also summoned extraordinary courage. Taking a deep breath, she turned around and looked at Yin Nuoxing with a serious expression. Her red lips parted slightly. Yin Nuoxing's heart skipped a beat. Seeing that she had calmed down, he also calmed down. He took a deep breath, nodded gently, and said, "Go ahead. If father really allows us to get engaged, what do you plan to do?" Qin Yin asked softly. She didn't mix her emotions with her words at all. It was as if she was asking a question in the form of a computer program. Yin Nuoxing's heart skipped a beat. Hearing this, everyone came to a realization. Other than Lei Lang's group of 6 and Yu Xiao, the others had followed Yin Nuoxing to the Qin family in Xingling City and even helped to tidy up. After knowing that this girl was the little follower that Yin Nuoxing occasionally mentioned, the gazes of Xian and the others became much gentler. They directly took Little Moon from his side. The girls couldn't stop laughing. They actually directly became familiar with each other, skipping the step of getting to know each other. Yin Nuoxing watched as the girls started to play together. Even Yi, she was in little Yu Yu's arms. The two of them couldn't stop laughing. Although the scene was very beautiful and wonderful, Yin Nuoxing felt that something was wrong. Wasn't this healing too fast? Little Star and Little Yu Yu. Not bad. Your names are quite compatible. As expected of brother and sister, a star and a moon. Yuan, she patted Yin Nuoxing's shoulder and teased. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes. His gaze inadvertently turned to Qin Yin, who happened to be looking over as well. The two of them tacitly looked at each other and nodded. They both chose not to mention it. Unless this matter was really settled, they wouldn't mention it. "Boss, come and save the day. There's a brat from the Ganyuan region who's extremely arrogant." Suddenly, a voice sounded in their minds, causing everyone's expressions to change slightly. They all turned to look at Yin Nuoxing. He took out the jade slip and found Nightmare's soul power. After saying a few words, he put away the jade slip and sighed. He looked at everyone and said, "Let's go and make a scene." "Oh, let's go and make a scene." Yuan, she was extremely excited when he heard that they were going to make a scene. Yu Xiao was also speechless. "What's wrong?" Xian asked with concern. "There's a brat from the Ganyuan region. He made a very complicated array and asked the younger generation to solve it. In the end, no one could solve it." Yin Nuoxing talked about what Nightmare had just said to him as they walked. There aren't many array masters in the younger generation. That brat from the Ganyuan region even said that there were no array masters in other regions. Nightmare couldn't stand it and almost started a fight. If it weren't for Yao Hua and the others holding him back, he would have turned the sky upside down, Yin Nuoxing said. Nightmare is still so impulsive. What about little Xia? Her array skills are also very outstanding. Could it be? Xian was puzzled. Shui Xia also couldn't do anything about that array. Otherwise, why would she ask us to go over? She even seemed to be injured. Yin Nuoxing shrugged. That's right. who would call for green oil chicken for no reason. Everyone felt the same way and nodded. In the hall of a palace, a banquet was set up. All kinds of rare ingredients and rare wines were placed casually, causing the place to be as dense as fog. However, at this moment, the atmosphere in the palace was very tense. Many experts wearing the same color clothes had their hands crossed over their chests and looked down with cold smiles. At the head of the table was a man in a green robe. He was about 23 or 24 years old. His face couldn't be considered very handsome, but there was an unconcealable arrogance between his brows, which made him appear very charming. The atmosphere in the hall was somewhat tense. Nightmare had even taken out his black scythe. His pitch-black eyes stared fixedly at the man at the head of the table. A murderous aura surged from his body. Behind him, Yao Hua and the others were nervously protecting the unconscious girl with long blue hair. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of the girl's mouth. It was very eye-catching. Coupled with her somewhat pale and delicate face, it was very distressing. In the hall, there were many experts of the younger generation. They seemed to have come from different regions and some of the major forces. However, at this moment, their gazes were like nightmares. They stared fiercely at the man at the head of the table, as if they wanted to tear him to pieces. However, from the fluctuations of their auras, it seemed that they were all injured. Hong Fei, what's the point of bullying a girl? If you have the guts, come down. Let's fight one-on-one. I can't beat you to death. Nightmare suddenly took a step forward. The black scythe in his hand danced like a whirlwind. Murderous aura exploded with a furious roar. There's no point in fighting. Like I said before, if you can undo or destroy this overturn the sky formation, I'll apologize. However, looking at the people from the major regions, TCH, forgive me for being blunt, but everyone here is trash. The azure robe man called Hong Fei did not care at all. He laughed loudly and crossed his legs. He even took a sip of wine. Looking at Nightmare's furious expression, there was a hint of amusement in his eyes. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, more than 100 terrifying forces erupted in the main hall, sweeping out like a storm. Everyone present was an elite disciple of some major forces, and some were even like the divine sons and goddesses, but they were all scolded by him with a single sentence. If this could be tolerated, what else could be tolerated? Oh, you want a group fight? I don't have any objections. One formation is enough to deal with all of you. Hong Fei laughed even more arrogantly when he saw everyone erupting with terrifying auras. He slammed his hands on the table, and the huge formation engraved on the wall behind him flew out. Wait! Suddenly, Nightmare's black scythe paused and stomped on the ground. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Hong Fei. He sneered and said, "You're saying that if someone can undo this formation, you'll kneel down and apologize? Kneel down and apologize?" Did he say that? I think so. The surrounding people were slightly stunned when they heard Mo Yan's voice. All of their faces were filled with astonishment. Even Hong Fei was startled. However, he quickly understood the situation and laughed heartily. All right, I'd like to see who you can invite to undo this formation. Even if it's destroyed, it's my loss. Hearing this, Nightmare laughed coldly. He opened his arms and looked at the others. He laughed loudly and said, "Everyone, you've heard it clearly. Let's wait and see." As soon as he finished speaking, Nightmare swung his arm toward the entrance of the palace. Everyone looked over anxiously and expectantly. They were all people from major forces. Of course, they wouldn't do nothing after being insulted. However, they really couldn't do anything. They could only entrust their expectations to others. Although Hong Fei's words were very arrogant, it seemed that no one in the younger generation could beat him in terms of formations. Even Shui Xia, the water god temple, had been defeated. Just as everyone was feeling both happy and worried, a group of figures slowly walked in from the entrance of the palace. The person in the lead was wearing a black half-mask with golden edges. His dazzling long hair danced in the wind. When they saw this figure, for some reason, hope rose in everyone's hearts. Chapter 578. The arrival of the rainbow-haired youth was like a shot of adrenaline, allowing the exhausted young elites to regain some of their vitality. They stared at him without blinking as he slowly walked in. Their gazes were filled with anticipation and awe. A person like him was not someone they could discuss. As soon as Yin Nuoxing entered, he saw a large group of people casting their gazes over. However, as he was wearing a mask, he did not have much of a reaction. His eyes swept around and found the place where Jin Ing and the others were. He led his people and quickly walked over. As for the huge floating formation and the group of people on the main seats, they were all ignored by him. How is it? As soon as he approached, Yin Nuoxing saw Shui Xia's pale face. There was even a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, which made his heart ache slightly. Little Xia was devoured by his formation. Originally, she could have broken through the formation, but that bastard suddenly activated it at the critical moment. She was unable to react in time and was devoured by the formation. The wood spirit's voice was filled with anger as she ground her teeth. Her main mouth seemed to be about to spit out flames at this moment. Yin Nuoxing nodded and crouched down. He pressed his hand between Shui Xia's eyebrows, and several strands of energy rushed out together, surging into Shui Xia's body. After a while, he stood up and said, "It's nothing serious. She just suffered a bit of backlash. I've already healed the damage to her soul. She'll be fine after some rest." "Yeah, that guy is too despicable. Little Star, I'll leave her to you." Jining nodded heavily and placed Shui Xia on a chair. "Brother, beat him up. Let him see what a formation is." Nightmare, Yao Hua, and the others roared angrily as well. That was just too humiliating. It was simply too humiliating. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and looked around. He discovered that almost everyone was staring at him as soon as he arrived. Their gazes were filled with anticipation. "Do your best, Yin Nuoxing." Suddenly, a woman in a corner suddenly shouted, causing everyone to be stunned. Yin Nuoxing also looked at her in surprise. She seemed to have just reacted and quickly lowered her head. Her face was so red that it could drip water. Yin Nuoxing smiled faintly and nodded. She turned her gaze and looked at the man on the seat of honor. Then, she looked at the huge formation behind him and asked softly, "You did this?" Seeing this, Hong Fei looked at him with some disdain and sneered. "You expect the trash here to be able to create such a masterpiece? Or is it that you, who they have given all their hopes to you, are blind? You seem to be quite the character. If you want to break it, please do so. However, if any accident occurs, you will have to bear the consequences." Hong Fei laughed loudly, causing everyone in the hall to become furious. Yin Nuoxing waved her hand and walked towards the formation. She stood in front of the huge formation. At this moment, everyone watched this scene with fear and trepidation. This was a divine body that was quite famous in the entire divine realm. Even the 9 deity temples had to protect it with all their might. Could it wash away their humiliation? Compared to everyone's nervousness, Nightmare and the others were much calmer. The Yin Nuoxing they knew had never failed. Boom! However, in the next second, a dull sound rang out. Everyone saw a colorful figure fly out, causing everyone's faces to turn ashen. How can this be? Impossible. Evie can't do it. Is that formation really that strong? When Yin Nuoxing flew out, everyone in the hall was a little depressed and unwilling. They glared fiercely at Hong Fei. If looks could kill, Hong Fei would have died tens of millions of times. Even Xian and the others were dumbfounded. Yishi was also in a daze. She knew very well about Yin Nuoxing's attainments and formations. That formation was only a 6th grade magic rank formation. How could she not be able to break it and even be sent flying? Ha! This is the savior you have been waiting for all this time. An arrogant person who flew out without even touching the formation. Is this a clown you invited? As expected, all the friends of trash are trash. When Hong Fei saw Yin Nuoxing fly out, he laughed unscrupulously. He slammed his hands on the table, causing the wine cups to fall to the side. The wine spilled all over the table. Damn it, let's fight it out with him. When have I ever suffered such humiliation? Kill, kill, kill. Everyone was so agitated that they could no longer control their state of mind. They roared one after another, and their aura was about to overturn the hall. Ha ha ha, so funny. However, just when everyone was about to lose control of their anger, a somewhat stiff laugh rang out, causing everyone to be stunned. They hurriedly turned their gazes and saw a rainbow-haired figure slowly walking in from the door. It was Yin Nuoxing. You call this a formation? While everyone was in a daze, Yin Nuoxing sighed. Her evil spirit eyes suddenly opened, and a wave of violent soul power surged out. It swept out like a storm and rushed into the formation along with the evil spirit eye. Then, she snapped her fingers with her left hand. Ta! Bang! As soon as the snap of her fingers sounded, the formation suddenly exploded while everyone was still in a daze. It turned into streaks of azure light and disappeared in midair. It was so fast that even Hong Fei couldn't react in time. Let me teach you how to use the formation. Yin Nuoxing sighed again and snapped her fingers again. Then, hundreds of azure formations suddenly appeared in midair. The resplendent light shone on everyone's faces, causing them to be in a daze. Retreat. Hong Fei was the first to react. His face suddenly turned pale. His figure flashed, and he suddenly rushed towards the entrance of the hall. His companions were a bit slower, but they still quickly caught up. How can the main character of a play run away? Yin Nuoxing sighed. She snapped her fingers again, and hundreds of golden chains suddenly shot out from the hundreds of formations. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they shot towards Hong Fei and the others. The light elemental chains wrapped around Hong Fei in the blink of an eye. Scram! A strong force suddenly tugged at his waist, causing Hong Fei's expression to change slightly. He lowered his head and saw the chains as thick as his thighs. He roared angrily, and a terrifying demonic aura surged out and slammed against the tough chains. A series of clanking sounds could be heard as the chains swayed. However, even though the aura was very strong, he couldn't even break free. All right, please, Scram. Yin Nuoxing nodded. With a wave of his hand, a large number of chains connected to form a canopy directly engulfed Hong Fei, who was still unleashing his aura, and tied all of them up like dumplings. Come, get up. Yin Nuoxing waved her hand again, and the large canopy of chains fell to the ground. Then they dragged Hong Fei and the others back. The few people who were rolled up like spring rolls immediately started rolling on the ground at high speed. When Hong Fei and the others rolled back to their seats, the chains swarmed up again and tied them up tightly like a few fat cocoons. Only their heads were exposed, and they were hung upside down in midair. What a strange request. After doing this, Yin Nuoxing clapped her hands. Only then did everyone react. They looked at the fat cocoons hanging upside down in the sky and shivered. This is a freak, subduing a few demon-rank powerhouses in a few seconds. Fortunately, the Reception Divine Physique is still that powerful Reception Divine Physique. Phew! I was almost in despair. So handsome, so powerful, so powerful, so handsome. In the main hall, the powerful successors of the major forces all heaved a sigh of relief. However, their gazes were still somewhat unfriendly as they looked at Hong Fei, who was suspended in midair by hundreds of chains. Although Yin Nuoxing had come out to extinguish his prestige, many people were still somewhat unhappy in their hearts. Many of the female disciples were looking at Yin Nuoxing with a strange light in their eyes. Nightmare and the others heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Yin Nuoxing strangely. It turns out that she was just throwing the match. Like I said, how could Big Brother not be able to deal with these trashy arrays? Yishi rolled her eyes and sat on a stool, her legs swinging back and forth. Hearing the voices in the surroundings, Yin Nuoxing spread her hands and walked towards Hong Fei. The latter was still dizzy from being rolled around and didn't open his eyes to see who was in front of him. Hey, open your eyes if you're not dead. If you're dead, I'll send you on a trip to the Starfield. If you're pretending to be dead, I'll send you back to the Ganyuan region. High-altitude express delivery. Yin Nuoxing pushed him and unhappily said. Hong Fei, who was dizzy from being rolled around, suddenly shook his head and sobered up a lot. When he saw Yin Nuoxing standing in front of him, he couldn't help roaring, but he couldn't break free from the chains no matter how hard he tried. "Bastard, put me down if you have the guts. Let's have a fair fight." After panting for a while, Hong Fei stopped his useless struggle and roared fiercely. "We've already had a fair fight. We've already fought fair and square, so there's no need for you to say anything else. You gave me a formation for me to solve, and I'll give you a formation for you to solve as well. If you can solve it, I'll let you down. If you can't, then stay here. You can leave when you solve it." Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes at him and slapped the chain with his palm, causing the big fat cocoon to spin again. "Bastard, stop. Quickly. I won't spare." If the spinning big fat cocoon said something vaguely, which made everyone laugh. This guy was actually quite a character, but he had met an even more ruthless character. Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes and ignored him. She walked straight to the wall at the back and gently pressed her palm on the wall. Then, an azure array quietly appeared and slowly formed. It was about 1,000 feet in size. Whether it was in terms of size or complexity, it was more than a level higher than the one Hong Fei had made. Everyone was dizzy just looking at it. Buzz! After the array was completed, it let out a soft, buzzing sound. Surges of heaven and earth energy and star energy quietly gathered towards the array. However, Yin Nuoxing suppressed the power of the array very well. If it exploded, this hall would definitely be destroyed. "Please, Mr. Scram." Yin Nuoxing waved her hand and pulled the big fat cocoons over. She placed them in front of the array and even made a gesture of invitation. Hong Fei was so angry that his face turned red. F***CK. At asterisk and Brother Nuo, aren't you bullying me? Using a divine level array to make things difficult for me. When Yishi saw the array, she hurriedly covered her mouth with her wide sleeves and laughed softly. Yuan Shi and the others who heard this all had black lines on their faces. Chapter 579. Yin Nuoxing also knew that it was almost impossible for Hong Fei to decipher the divine magic array. He did not really let Hong Fei decipher it. He just left Hong Fei there until Shui Xiao woke up. Then, he dragged Hong Fei over and forced him to apologize. Only then did he let him go. Yin Nuoxing and the others walked out of the palace and saw Golden Princess leaning against the celestial tree. She was folding a leaf out of boredom. When she saw them come out, she could not help but roll her eyes. She flung the leaf away with her jade-like hand. Then, she walked in front of them and said, so slow. The group of people shrank back and then laughed dryly. Yin Nuoxing also laughed dryly and walked forward. He said, Sister Jean, what's the matter? Well, let's go first. We'll talk on the way. Golden Princess nodded. Her face was slightly gloomy. Obviously, she was not in a good mood. Everyone nodded and followed Golden Princess into the air. Then, they flew towards the Jade Palaces. To be precise, they flew towards the huge palace in the depths of the Jade Palaces. Many experts had gathered in the Heavenly Palace. When Yin Nuoxing and the others came out, they also saw many experts flying towards the palace. At this time, there were even more people flying towards the palace. This grand event is organized by the Phaseless Cult and several other major forces. You already know this. Just now, the hierarch of the Phaseless Cult and the others gathered everyone in the Ju Yuan Mountain Villa. Maybe they have something important to announce, Golden Princess said in a low voice. Yin Nuoxing and the others looked at each other and swept their eyes around. In the Jade Palaces below, a group of people broke through the doors and rushed out. Then, they flew into the sky and flew towards the Heavenly Palace in the distance. At this time, many people had already gathered in the Heavenly Palace. There was even a large group of people standing at the door. Those were the younger generation. Only the powerful figures of various forces could enter the Heavenly Palace. The Nine Deities Temple is assisting in the Taiyuan Grand Assembly. It's not a big deal for me to bring some people in. Yin Nuoxing and the rest of the youngsters stood motionless at the entrance of the main hall of the Heavenly Palace. The Golden Empress turned around and rolled her eyes at them. Then, She held Yin Nuoxing's hand and walked in. Her soft words made everyone around her speechless. They could accept that Yin Nuoxing could enter, but there was a large group of people in this area. This, after all, the Nine Deities Hall was one of the hosts of the event, so it was only natural for them to enjoy special privileges. As soon as they entered the main hall, they heard a lot of noise. Many powerful people in the main hall turned to look at them. When they saw a group of young people walking in, they couldn't help but frown. However, when they saw the Golden Empress walking in front, a trace of fear flashed through the depths of their eyes. They all chose to shut up. No one dared to say anything inappropriate. "Sister Jean, what kind of shocking thing have you done?" Yin Nuoxing caught some of the gazes of the powerful people. He rolled his eyes and looked at the Golden Empress. He couldn't help but ask in a low voice. The Golden Empress glared at him, causing Yin Nuoxing to shrink his neck and look at her with an aggrieved expression. This caused the Golden Empress' heart to soften, and she sighed. However, before she could say anything, a kind voice chuckled from the side. "Your sister Jean was called the Golden Killing God back then. She gained her fame through killing. How could she not be feared?" Yin Nuoxing turned his gaze. The figure that appeared in front of him was wearing a green brocade robe. He had white hair and a youthful complexion. There was a kind smile on his fair face. He looked like an immortal, but his two eyebrows seemed a little too long. "Old man, are you looking for trouble?" The Golden Empress heard him stealing her line and couldn't help but roll her eyes. She then pulled Yin Nuoxing to her side and said, "This is Old Man Wu Xiang. I've forgotten his name millions of years ago. Everyone calls him Old Man Wu Xiang. He's the current leader of the Phaseless sect." "Uncle, Phaseless." Yin Nuoxing cupped his hands and was about to call him Senior when he felt the Golden Empress pinching his waist. He shuddered violently and quickly changed his words. What an interesting little fellow. Is he your disciple?" Old Man Wu Xiang's smile widened when he heard this. His smile was as bright as a sunflower. "Disciple? I also want to. Unfortunately, I can't raise this phoenix. At most, I can lend him a hand." The Golden Empress sighed and shook her head. Her jade-like hand gently rubbed Yin Nuoxing's head, causing him to feel a little strange. He turned his head to look at her, only to see her smiling gently at him. He lowered his head. "Can't raise him." It wasn't just Old Man Wu Xiang. Even the surrounding experts who were eavesdropping turned their gazes curiously. To be able to make a top-tier Emperor God expert say that he couldn't raise him, everyone glanced at Yin Nuoxing and thought for a moment. They seemed to understand something. No wonder he couldn't raise him. This fellow really couldn't afford to raise him, so it's that little fellow. Old Man Wu Xiang revealed a look of understanding. He then smiled and said, "Come, we've been waiting for you." The Golden Empress nodded. Old Man Wu Xiang also nodded slightly. They walked towards the main seat of the hall. However, the Golden Empress didn't bring Yin Nuoxing and the others there. Instead, she walked to the stairs at the side and arrived at the third floor. Jin Wang and the others were also there. "They're here." A group of people from Yin Nuo Star walked out of the staircase one after another, causing Jin Wang to smile. He went forward and led the group to the best vantage point. Looking at the large hall below, thousands of experts had already sat down one after another. Some of them leaned against the stone pillars on both sides of the large hall. They crossed their arms and looked indifferently at the large hall. There weren't many people on the second and third floors. Other than the group of people from the Nine Divine Temple on the third floor, the second floor was even more deserted. Those who were able to stand here were all-powerful forces who had come together to assist in the Taiyuan Grand Meet. Yin Nuoxing also saw the elders of the Yu family who had gone to the Tana's Water God Palace with him. There were also some experts at the Emperor God level. Obviously, the Yu family also attached great importance to this Grand Meet. They had sent many people here. At this moment, this group of people from a Yu family was chatting with the people from the Nine Divine Temple. They nodded at Yin Nuoxing's arrival, as if they were expressing their goodwill. Yin Nuoxing returned the greeting with a smile. He and Yu Xiao were friends, so naturally, he would respect the people from the Yu family. "Sis, you still haven't told me what happened. Someone from the demon world has come." It's not just the few that we saw today. Moreover, they are here to deliver a message. The Golden Queen said in a deep voice, "Deliver a message." Everyone's expression was strange. Around half an hour after Empress Jin's group arrived, a black figure with a powerful aura followed behind a few disciples from large factions. They stepped on a black fog and walked into the large hall. A rolling, demonic aura spread out, causing the younger generation at the door to hold their breaths. That frightening strength had merely landed on their bodies, but it had already caused them to lose the ability to resist dense demonic chi. It's filled with a foul stench. Many people frowned. They were very disgusted by this aura. It had been 2 billion years since the last great battle in the demon world. The battle 20 million years ago was just a small one. Many people here had not even seen someone from the demon world before. This was the first time they had seen someone from the demon world. They were all shocked. This person's entire body was filled with dense demonic chi. It was different from the demonic chi of the humans who cultivated the demonic chi. This kind of demonic chi could only be controlled by the demon clan. If a human wanted to cultivate it, they would be the first to be devoured. This black shadow was completely covered by the demonic chi. It was impenetrable. They could not see his appearance. They could only see that he was more than 2 meters tall and was very sturdy. The person from the demon world came to the center of the hall. He looked around and finally fixed his eyes on the old man Wu Xiang, who was sitting on the main seat. He raised his head slightly and said, "What the hell? What's that?" Everyone was confused and looked at each other. They did not know what he was talking about. "You humans, have you even forgotten the common language of the ancient gods? 20 epochs ago, or even 2 billion years ago, there were still many humans using this language. It seems like humans are very good at forgetting." This devil world's man spoke indifferently as he switched to the common language of the divine world. After the great battle 2 billion years ago, it took many years for the god world to recover from the misery and suffering it is today. Many great forces were annihilated and turned to dust, and many new forces rose up. It is normal for people to forget. There are certainly people here who know how to use the common language of the myriad races, but there are not many. So please use the common language of the god world. Wu Xiang said indifferently. The god language created by the ancient gods was used by the 8 elemental worlds. After so many eras, it still has a long history. I never thought that would be the first to be cut off by the humans who are known as the wisest of all things. The person from the demon world sneered. The original language, the language of the mythological era, was close to non-existence. At the end of the mythological era, the gods jointly created a common language of the myriad races, which was the universal language of the myriad races. The entire 8 elemental worlds used this language, but the 8 elemental worlds had their own history. Language changes were inevitable. Except for some places where the universal language of the myriad races was used for daily life and writing, the language of many places had changed countless times. The current universal language of the god world was only enough for everyone in the god world to communicate. "My name is Shuahan Hai. This time, I'm only here to deliver a letter," the black figure said coldly. With a wave of his hand, he tossed a black scroll to Wu Xiang. The Wu Xiang old man glanced at him indifferently. His withered hand reached out from his sleeve and caught the black scroll. He slowly unfurled it. However, after a single glance, his languid old eyes suddenly turned sharp as he stared coldly at the black figure. It seems like there are still people who can understand the common language of the 10,000 tribes. Not everyone has forgotten it. The black figure smiled faintly and mocked when he saw Lin Feng's reaction. "Is your devil world ready?" Old man Wu Xiang's voice was cold, and his aura suddenly became fierce, causing everyone to be stunned. What's wrong with the old man? Princess Jean was also a little confused. She did not understand why Wu Xiang's temperament had suddenly changed. You can think of it that way. "I'm only responsible for delivering the letter," Zhuahan Hai said indifferently. Wu Xiang narrowed his eyes and looked at him coldly for a long time. Then he laughed coldly and said, "You are an energy body, not your true body. Zhuohanhai arrogantly raised his head, declining to comment. He then looked around the room, before finally fixing his gaze on Yun Che as he said in an indifferent voice, "I've already delivered the message. As for how you'll do it, that's up to you." Wu Xiang, read the content. Princess Jean frowned and sent a message down from the third floor. Wu Xiang nodded and did not delay. He read the content of the black scroll. Everyone who heard it showed murderous intent. They stared coldly at the black figure. If it was not for the fact that he was an energy body, someone would have already attacked him. A letter of challenge. My demon race is amazing. When Yun Nuoxing heard this, he was also filled with astonishment. He could not help but let out a long sigh. He had never expected that Zhuohanhai had come to deliver a letter of challenge. However, after old man Wu Xiang finished reading it, everyone's expressions changed once again. They did not really want to fight. The people of the demon world needed half of the divine prefecture's northern wilderness. The other half would be divided into the Taiyuan domain and Kuan Yuan domain. This part of the demon world would belong to the demon world. When the time came, the demon world would descend upon the god world and all races would coexist. Of course, it was impossible to achieve peaceful coexistence. Many grievances between the demon world and the god world had been passed down from generation to generation. The current peace was just a preparation for the next war. Many people realized that the god world would not be peaceful in the future. There would be friction between the human race and the demon race, the human race and the demon race, and even the demon race and the demon race. There would definitely be a bloodbath between the three races. At the entrance of the main hall, the younger generation was shocked. There would most likely be a rain of blood in the future. They did not know whether it was a blessing or a curse for them to encounter this era of confrontation between the three realms. The star of calamity has descended, and the great era is about to arrive. The successor of God will also appear along with the awakening of the great era. There truly won't be much time for peace in the future. Old Yuan's aged eyes looked at Zhuohanhai as he let out a long sigh. At the end of the scroll, it mentioned that the human race occupied too much territory in the god world. If the required areas were divided, they would be able to live in peace. Most people sneered inwardly at this. Peace to hell. They had already issued a letter of challenge. If they really divided half of the northern wilderness and a part of the Taiyuan domain and Kuan Yuan domain, it would be like winning a war to divide the territory. There are no traces of the human race in the northern half of the northern wilderness. Most of it is barren land like mountains. There are not as many underground resources as in the south. Your human race's main city is also in the south. Above that boundary, there are parts of the Taiyuan domain and Kuan Yuan domain, which are also borderlands. There are no human cities. What we want is an insignificant area, Zhuohanhai said indifferently. When will the devil world descend? Old man Wu Xiang took a deep breath and slowly withdrew his intimidating aura as he asked in an indifferent voice. Within 10 years. Chapter 580. Within 10 years, the demon world would appear from the void at the border between Taiyuan domain and Kuan Yuan domain, as well as the northern wasteland. From then on, the two lands would be connected. However, the demon world was much larger than the divine world. The border would only be a buffer zone, and the entire demon world would not appear. That might happen in the future, but not now. Done. After a long time, Elder Wu Xiang nodded gently, which stunned Zhuohanhai. Even the expressions of many of the human race experts changed drastically, and they all wanted to speak up. This reply letter. Elder Wu Xiang raised the black scroll high above his head and shouted loudly, which stunned everyone who wanted to speak. The scene fell silent again, and then he continued to shout, "Who will write this reply letter?" Everyone's expressions changed slightly when they heard this, and then they all nodded. The demon world was an important place to write a letter of challenge. Just as Zhuohanhai said, the human race's territory was very vast, so what if they gave you a small part of it? However, they cannot give it to you so easily. Didn't you write a letter? Then we will write a letter in return. This reply letter represented the will of the majority of the human cultivators, because 70% of the major forces of the divine world had come to the Taiyuan Grand Meeting, and more than half of the transcendental forces had also come. Although many people present could not help but want to fight when they heard the news, they also knew that it was not the right time, just as the demon world knew that it was not the right time. They could only maintain this fragile, temporary peace. Mei Mao, the Golden Empress, glanced at the crowd below and then looked at Yun Nuoxing, who was lying on the wall with both hands looking bored. Mei Mao's eyes flashed, and she seemed to have an idea. "Old man, let me write it." The Golden Crown Princess smiled and shouted at Wu Xiang. Everyone nodded. The Golden Crown Princess had been famous for a long time, so it was appropriate for the Golden Killing God to write it. The latter also nodded and waved his hand, throwing a golden scroll over. After receiving it, the Golden Queen grinned. She waved her hand and shielded the area. Then she rubbed Yun Nuoxing's head and said with a smile, "Little star, write a letter." Huh. Yun Nuoxing wasn't the only one who was dumbfounded. Even the divine kings, the great elders, the Yu family, the mountain monarch, and Lachine were dumbfounded. However, someone as intelligent as Yun Nuoxing seemed to have understood something after being confused for a while. She said, "Sister Jean, you want me to write in the Kanagami language?" Kanagami? However, to his surprise, the Golden Empress and the rest were dumbfounded. She blinked at Mei Mao and said in shock, "I want you to write with a god weapon. It will be very impressive. But what's with the Kanagami language? How many things are you hiding from us? You don't know." Yun Nuoxing was even more shocked. Then, she quickly covered her mouth and looked at Xian, Yuan Shi, and Yu Xiao with a broken face. "Little Xingxing, this time it really wasn't us who said it. It was you who said it." Seeing Yun Nuoxing's lifeless gaze turn around, Yuan Shi let out a bitter laugh and hurriedly waved her hand. Ziyin and Yu Xiao also hurriedly nodded. Yun Nuoxing was stunned. Then, she hugged her head in pain and squatted on the ground, wailing, "Ah, I know too many people. I don't even know who is me anymore." Everyone smiled bitterly. "Who asked you to know so many people and keep secret from everyone? You probably don't even know if you've told anyone." After a while, Yun Nuoxing stood up with a bitter smile. She pinched her face and grabbed her hair. She looked at the Golden Empress and the rest as if she was about to cry. Then, she nodded and said, "I know Kanagami. I thought you knew." After hearing this, everyone's emotions were 100 times more complicated than Yun Nuoxing. Their expressions changed so much that they didn't know what to say. "Little guy, you're really a treasure. I really want to run into your mind and see what you don't know." The Golden Empress gently caressed Yun Nuoxing's face. Her gentle words made him smile bitterly. He casually wrote 2 words that no one could understand. Although they were a little confused, they trusted Yun Nuoxing. At least, she wouldn't joke at this time. Especially when she said it casually, it was more believable. "It's true. It's Kanagami." Little White, who was lying on Xian's head, said softly. This made everyone believe it even more. However, they were a little confused. How did she know it was Kanagami? "We, the 4 mythological beasts, have been passed down from the mythological era. We died, were sealed, and were reborn again and again. We have lived from that era until now. Even if we lose our memories every time we are reborn, the divinity and divinity that were given to us, as well as all the knowledge, will not disappear with death. That's why we can recognize Kanagami." "Phone," her soft voice made everyone suddenly understand. Yun Nuoxing grabbed the Nether Void Sword and the Linghong Sword. Then, he put the Lunar Platform and the Matrix Book together. He clenched his hands, and the 4 weapons slowly merged together. The divine sword that appeared was different from the previous 2 weapons. It looked much lighter and more powerful. However, the only thing they had in common was that both weapons were sheathed in a scabbard that couldn't be pulled out. After the Linghong sword leveled up, it could merge more weapons. However, with Yun Nuoxing's current ability, he could only merge for weapons. Just maintaining it would consume a lot of his energy. However, this also proved the value of the Linghong sword. It was a divine sword that could encompass everything. It could make the strong stronger. The newly born divine sword was a huge long sword. It was gold and black in color. The runes, symbols, and energy patterns on the surface of the sword were constantly changing. It was very mysterious. Moreover, there was a terrifying cold and strange power emerging from the sword. Clang! Holding the black and golden divine sword, Yun Nuashing took a deep breath and opened the golden scroll in front of him. Then, he listened to the Golden Queen's words. He suddenly waved the divine sword and used all his strength to carve stroke after stroke on the golden paper. He carved out strange characters. Those were Kanagami characters. They were obscure and difficult to understand. They didn't look like hieroglyphs. After taking a deep breath, Yin Nuashing felt that the energy in his body was disappearing at a terrifying speed. He could not bear it any longer. He clenched his teeth, and his entire body began to spin like a windmill. Relying on inertia, he carved out strokes after strokes and wrote down words one after another. If this letter is completed, I'm afraid it will be ranked as one of the most expensive letters. Everyone looked at Yin Nuashing strenuously writing the Kanagami characters. Sweat dripped from his forehead like rain. They were all a little embarrassed. Clang! Suddenly, their vision turned black and the divine sword slipped out of their hands. Yin Nuashing also staggered 2 steps and squatted down. Everyone was stunned. They hurriedly ran over. However, they saw that his handsome face was pale. His rapid heartbeat was like heavy raindrops falling on a drum. It was ringing nonstop. I'm exhausted. Seeing everyone's worried expressions, Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly and waved his hand. The energy talismans between his eyebrows exploded and turned into a sea of star energy that surged into his body. His exhausted body was completely recovered in an instant. His colorful eyes paused. He grabbed the divine sword and waved it like the wind again. Halfway through writing, Yin Nuashing was suddenly stunned. His hands stopped moving. Princess Jean also looked at him in astonishment. Then, she heard him say, "Can we remove the part in the Taiyuan region? What's wrong?" Princess Jean raised her eyebrows and asked, "There's a very, very powerful thing in that place. Anyway, I can't touch it right now. However, I don't really want others to touch it either." Yin Nuashing laughed dryly. After he discovered it, he quickly admitted that he was a little greedy. "What is it?" Hearing this, everyone hurriedly asked. I won't tell you." Yin Nuashing shook his head vigorously. "Then write with all your might." Princess Jean sighed. She looked as if there was no room for discussion. Yin Nuashing was so anxious that he was about to cry. However, in the end, he still told them about the Red Lotus Hellfire that Ziyi had told him. Then the air froze. "We'll talk about this later. For now, no one could touch it. If that thing really exists, let alone here, it can even be felt in the corners of the Ganyuan region. Therefore, it probably hasn't appeared yet. If there's news in the future, we'll bring you there." Princess Jean waved her hand, then urged him to write the letter. After a long time, after Yin Nuashing had exploded more than 100 energy talismans and soul talismans, he finally finished writing the letter written with a godly sword. It was probably the first time in history that he had written something like this. After he was done, Yin Nuashing lay half dead in Xian's arms. Lan Exen jumped out from between his eyebrows and read the letter with Feng and White Tiger. After a long time, they finally finished reading the letter. They silently raised their heads and looked at Princess Jean. They smiled bitterly and said, "You're trying to anger the demon race to death." I don't know what you're talking about." Hearing this, Princess Jean giggled. Her jade-like hands kept swaying as if she was about to dance. This made everyone speechless. Everyone in the hall saw that Princess Jean had taken the scroll and sealed the space. Now, they were waiting quietly. They were a little anxious, but since Elder Wu Xiang had agreed to let her write it, there shouldn't be any big problems. After all, the Nine-Deity Temple was one of the guardian forces of the God Realm. They didn't want to see the God Realm being invaded by the demon world. After waiting for a long time, Zhuo Hanhai grew impatient. Just as he was about to ask, the space barrier dissipated, and the Golden Empress appeared in front of everyone's eyes. She looked at the crowd below and smiled gently. She rolled up the golden paper in her hand and threw it to old man Wu Xiang. The latter caught the scroll and unfolded it. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He hurriedly sent a message to the former. "What is this?" "Don't worry, old man. There won't be any problems. It just depends on whether the people of the demon clan can understand it. This is a letter that transcends time. It can be said to be unprecedented." Princess Jean sent a message and laughed loudly. Elder Wu Xiang looked at the letter doubtfully. Although he couldn't understand it, the extremely terrifying aura it contained made his expression turn serious. Moreover, it didn't look like it was written randomly. He reluctantly felt relieved. He rolled it up and threw it to Zhuohan Hai. After waiting for nearly half an hour for a reply, Zhuohan Hai received it. Although he wanted to open it and read it, he didn't do so abruptly. He was just a messenger and didn't have the right to open the reply letter. After hearing that the Taiyuan Grand Gathering is being held in Starfall City, the sovereign king of my clan ordered me to deliver the letter that inherited the majority of the will of the demon world. If this is the will of the human clan, I will solemnly present it to the sovereign king of my clan and have it spread throughout the entire demon world. Zhuohan Hai's black figure solemnly put away the golden scroll and nodded. After receiving the reply letter, Zhuohan Hai didn't stay for long. He looked around one last time before leaving. However, he left behind a heavy atmosphere in the hall. The days ahead won't be peaceful. Even now, people of the demon clan have appeared. Guardian forces present. This heavy burden can't be shouldered by all of you. As part of the human clan, if you can help a little, please help a little. The Taiyuan Grand Gathering this time is being held in advance, according to the predictions of the celestial masters of the cult. The Grand Gathering will last for 3 more days. If everyone wants to stay, then continue to play. I hope to see everyone participating in the next Grand Gathering. Elder Wu Xiang's faint voice fell, causing many people to clench their fists. 10 years. At this moment, at the beginning of the 139th era, this entire era might not be peaceful. Chapter 581. After Elder Wu Xiang said those words, he disappeared from where he stood. The experts from the superpowers sat quietly for a long time, as if they were sorting out their complicated emotions. It was only after a quarter of an hour that some people started to leave. It was time for them to go back and deal with the matters of their superpowers. Within 10 years, the demon world would descend upon the god world. This would be a huge event that would be recorded in the history of the god world. It was enough to turn the god world upside down. What did you write in the letter? Elder Wu Xiang, who had left, ran to the 3rd floor and looked at the Golden Queen helplessly. The letter was written in a very ancient language. He could not understand it, so he could only ask the person who wrote it. Nothing much. To put it simply, it's to tell those little devils not to be too presumptuous. The Golden Queen spread out her hands and smiled. Feng Air and Whitey exchanged looks, then both of them shut their mouths. Although that was the meaning of the letter, if they read it correctly, the one who read the letter would be so infuriated that he or she would vomit blood on the spot. Anyway, it was more likely that he or she wouldn't be able to understand the letter. Forget it. I'm not going to argue with you. Elder Wu Xiang rolled his eyes and slowly glanced at everyone in front of him. He then sighed softly and said, "The 9 Shrine moved to the northern wilderness." Was it because they were the first to know that the door to the demon world would open in the northern wilderness? No. At that time, because Little Star came back, the first one to enter was the Fire God Temple. Therefore, we all moved our positions. The Golden Queen shook her head. Well, since we're in the northern wilderness, we'll have to trouble you in the future. We'll help you, but our forces are too scattered and we've always been in seclusion. We may not be as useful as the 9 divine temples. Elder Wu Xiang sighed. It's okay. It's okay as long as you're sincere. Of course, you should at least send a large team of high-level gods over. Although the 9 Gods Temple has a lot of people, it's impossible for one person to fight against the entire devil world. If they suddenly attack and no one helps, we will be in trouble. The Golden Queen waved her hand. Don't worry about that. I will send people over. Old man Wu Xiang nodded. He also knew how difficult it was to guard a conflict zone. Moreover, this was an entrance that concerned the safety of the God realm. He would definitely guard it well. What about the other guardian forces? The great elder of the fire god shrine also asked. This was a battle of attrition. Although the 9 divine palaces were powerful, they alone were not enough. At the mention of this, Elder Wu Xiang furrowed his brows. He seemed to be troubled, which made Empress Jean and the others feel uneasy. After a while, he said, "Protectors? Sigh. 2 of them have left, so there aren't many protectors left. It's getting harder and harder to endure these years of war. We have to think of a way to get everyone to protect the realm of the gods together. How long can we last with just a dozen protectors?" "Quit." The Golden Princess frowned. "Yes, don't blame them. They have been guarding the god realm for a long time and have always been unwilling to enter the world. They also need to completely isolate themselves for a period of time to recover. A few years ago, I went to see them for the last time. After I came out, they were completely isolated. In the future, we probably won't see them for millions of years." Elder Wu Xiang sighed heavily. There was no benefit to being a guardian force. When something big happened, they would be the ones to take the lead and clean up the mess. "Liuli, can you contact that person or someone from the Liuli Divine Court?" Elder Wu Xiang rubbed his sleeves and looked at the Empress with his old eyes. "It's difficult. I really haven't seen Master. It's been a few eras, and even the gods have turned to ashes. There are only about 50 people in the Liuli Divine Court, and they only have a weak connection with each other. If we get close, we will know. But if we want to find her, I'm afraid only the High Priestess can find her. As for her..." At this point, the Empress couldn't help but sigh and cover her face. She felt helpless when talking about that person. Back then, she had secretly cursed that it would be best not to see her in this life. Seeing her like this, Elder Wu Xiang also understood. Even if he knew, he could only sigh. "I'll go and contact my old friends and the Guardian Forces. I'll leave the Northern Barren Territory to you." Wu Xiang let out a long sigh and nodded at the crowd. Then, he looked at Yin Nuoxing and smiled kindly. "Ha! But the real thing is still you kids. The future belongs to you. Now we old guys can still hold on. Before we can't, you guys should grow up as fast as you can." After that, he didn't wait for Yin Nuoxing to reply. His body slowly became illusory and finally disappeared. Yin Nuoxing stared at him. What did this have to do with him? After old man Wu Xiang disappeared, a black fog suddenly appeared in front of them. The black fog disappeared as soon as it appeared, and a little girl who looked to be about 17 or 18 years old flew towards planet Yunua. She was like a white ghost that appeared out of nowhere. "Brother Yun." That crisp voice stunned everyone. Then, they saw a petite figure lying on Yun Nuoxing's back. Her soft arms wrapped around Yun Nuoxing's neck like a snake. Her delicate nose was still close to Yun Nuoxing's neck. She inhaled with all her might, as if she had smelled an alluring fragrance that made her unable to stop. "Big brother. Who is she?" Before anyone could react, Qin Yu's pretty face darkened. She could accept she calling Yin Nuoxing brother Yin Nuoxing because she had heard Yin Nuoxing talk about this little girl before. She was also very cute. She also knew that there was a little sister and a little sister who were sleeping in the 9 deities' palace. She knew everything. However, where did this little girl who she had never heard of come from? Moreover, this little girl's appearance was actually comparable to hers, and she even called him Brother Yin so intimately. This made her unhappy all of a sudden. Yin Nuoxing laughed bitterly. He rubbed Little Moon's little head with his palm. When he saw her puffed-up cheeks, he felt even more helpless. He hurriedly removed the little mischievous girl from his neck. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, why are you here? I came a long time ago, but that old man was too fierce. I didn't dare to come over, so I came after he left." Yura hugged Yin Nuoxing's arm and giggled. She even leaned her face close to Yin Nuoxing's sleeve and sniffed with all her might. Everyone had a strange expression when they saw this scene. "Where are your father and the others?" Those dozens of strange gazes made Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly. They left. They went home. I snuck out. While the old man was asleep, I instilled a memory into him that I had already gone back. Then, they went back with peace of mind. Ewer giggled as she hugged Yin Nuashing's arm and shook it. A mischievous look flashed across Mei Mao's eyes. Yin Nuashing's face darkened. She even brought this matter to her father. This little ancestor was indeed hard to please. Why don't you go back? Yin Nuashing asked helplessly. I'm not going back. If I go back, I'll be fed some disgusting mud. I'll also be locked up in a small black room. The sky there is always black. There are no two large glowing objects to light up the sky. There are also no bumpy balls hanging in the sky at night. I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I want to go back with Big Brother Yin. At the mention of this, Ewer's little face fell. Her muttering voice made everyone's expression turn slightly serious. Little Star, where is she from? Princess Jean asked directly. Ewer is from the demon world. Yin Nuashing's bitter laughter caused the air to freeze again. Seeing that Princess Jean and the others' faces darkened slightly, Yin Nuashing's expression also changed slightly. He hurriedly pulled Ewer behind him and said nervously, Sister Jean, the hatred of one generation is another generation. Ewer is only 22 years old. It has nothing to do with her. Princess Jean was stunned when she heard this. More black lines appeared on her forehead. She raised her jade-like hand and gave him a knock on the head. She said coquettishly, Am I such an unreasonable person? I'm just curious. How did you manage to kidnap a little girl from the demon world? I met her by chance the day before yesterday. It was a coincidence. Yin Nuashing heaved a sigh of relief and shrugged his shoulders. Then, he turned around and lowered his head to look at you. She was blinking her beautiful and mischievous Mei Mao at him. When she saw him looking over, she also smiled, revealing a row of pearly white teeth. Brother Yin, can I suck your blood? Suddenly, you said something that was extremely baffling, causing everyone to be stunned. They all looked at this mischievous girl with a strange expression. They really wanted to say, Are you a vampire? You actually want to suck blood? Why? Yin Nuashing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Brother Yun's body smells so good. Yer was just thinking, Brother Yun's blood must be very fragrant. Can I suck a mouthful of it? Yer smiled innocently, causing everyone to be a little more vigilant. However, looking at her innocent and flawless smile, they frowned slightly. You're not thinking of sucking Little Star dry, are you? Could it be that the demon race sent you to deal with Little Star? The Golden Queen's red lips parted slightly, and she almost blurted out this sentence. The reason why she stopped was because she saw that you was only looking at Yin Nuashing expectantly. She did not make any sudden movements. Do members of the demon race also need to suck blood? Yin Nuashing asked calmly as she rubbed Ewer's head. Ewer hurriedly shook her head. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, she nodded and said, I heard that some races need to suck blood to cultivate. However, our family members do not need to do so, because we cultivate the most orthodox demon arts. Ewer was just smelled the fragrance from Brother Yun's body. I was a little bit tempted to take a bite. Ewer was a little bashful as she spoke. She seemed to be a little embarrassed as her beautiful face turned slightly red. However, Little Moon was extremely worried. Mei Mao looked at Yin Nuashing anxiously as if she wanted him to reject her and send this strange girl away. Ewer, what race are you from? Where are your father and the rest? Several gazes shot over from behind, causing Yin Nuashing to shiver. She smiled bitterly and asked patiently, Ancient Demon God Clan, it is said that our family is ranked second in the entire demon world. Ewer's grandfather, Ji Yu Chuan, is the patriarch of the Ancient Demon God Clan. Ewer's father, Ji Qing Tian, is ranked in the top 10 of the demon world's powerhouse ranking. PFFF. Ewer seemed to be very happy when she said this. However, everyone suddenly spat out a mouthful of water. This seemed to be a little bad. They actually managed to kidnap the little princess of the demon world's second-ranked transcendental force. Wow. Quickly send her away. Don't wait for her grandfather to come and kill us. Causing trouble, brother. Why did you kidnap a little lowly with a terrifying background? You perverted Lulicon. You are the perverted Lulicon. Your entire body is filled with a perverted aura. Do you believe that I will beat you to death? Yin Nuoxing roared. Everyone smiled bitterly. Before they could decide what to do, they saw Yuer quickly hugging Yin Nuoxing's arm tightly. She carefully looked at Empress Jean and the others and muttered, "Sister, don't send me away. I am very obedient. I don't make a fuss, jump, or be naughty. I just miss the smell on Brother Yun's body. Grandpa doesn't know that I ran out, okay?" Yin Nuoxing's face darkened. "You're making a fuss, jumping, and being naughty. You have already turned the family upside down, and you still say that you are obedient? You are a living little ancestor who is very difficult to please." Seeing her pitiful appearance, everyone was a little at a loss. Therefore, they all threw the responsibility to Yin Nuoxing and transmitted their voices. "Stinky brat, you created the hole yourself. Fix it yourself." I know. I'm just thinking about it." Yin Nuoxing's face twitched. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Pain. Suddenly, Yin Nuoxing frowned and let out a soft groan, causing everyone to be stunned. They hurriedly turned their gazes and saw that Yuer was holding the former's palm with both her hands. Her small mouth was gently biting his index finger, and a stream of mixed golden-red blood slowly flowed out from Yuer's small mouth. She was even hurriedly sucking on it, and her delicate small tongue licked the tip of his finger. That soft touch caused Yin Nuoxing's heart to tremble slightly, and a crimson blush involuntarily surfaced on his handsome face. You seem to be enjoying it. Should we leave for a while?" Seeing that Yin Nuoxing was actually blushing, Empress Jean and the others had strange expressions on their faces as they said with a smile that was not a smile. Zien and the others also had strange smiles on their faces as they gently turned around and did not forget to say, "Little Xingxing is in pain and happy at the same time." As for Little Moon, she was already infuriated to the point she was on the verge of exploding. Her jet black hair fluttered with rage, and her beautiful eyes glared fiercely at you while her silver teeth creaked from the friction between them, causing everyone to be unable to help but break out in cold sweat. This little girl wishes for nothing more than to directly eat you alive. No, let me explain. Yin Nuoxing was on the verge of tears. "Go explain it to a ghost." Everyone roared. Chapter 582. It was a grand event. Countless experts had come with high hopes, but they returned with heavy hearts. The first thing many people from powerful forces did after returning was to relocate their businesses in the northern wilderness. Although they hadn't decided where to put them, it was better to do so first. There were many forces that were different from those that had moved out of the Divine Sky City. After the Taiyuan Grand Event, they even sent many experts to guard the Divine Sky City and set up many arrays to strengthen the defense of the Divine Sky City. After the Taiyuan Grand Event, the Golden Queen and the others also planned to return to the 9 deity temples. This time, they took some of the core forces of the 9 deity temples with them. However, they had all promised to bring Yin Nuoxing to the northern part of the Taiyuan domain to search for the Void Fire. They would also bring him to the Snow Goddess sect to take a look. Therefore, they didn't return. They only sent the message to the various temple masters. In the end, they received a lot of complaints. Everyone was speechless. You 9 temple masters just look at the rising sun, the blazing sun, and the setting sun every day. You cultivate every day. It's rare for you to take care of something. Can't you be more proactive? Why don't you all come back? We'll bring the little deity for a walk. Yes. I haven't taken care of anything in the temple for hundreds of millions of years. You're asking me to take care of something. You're asking too much. I don't even know many people. Asking too much. Asking too much. Usually, these things are done by the Great Elder. I won't do it. Let's change positions. We'll also go out and take a breather. We'll bring Little Star to subdue the Divine Flame and the Snow Goddess sect. What's our slogan? Make trouble. Make trouble. Make trouble. What's the hardest decision in the world? What's for breakfast? What's for lunch? What's for dinner? The 9 palace masters were chattering away like old urchins. making the Golden Queen and the others speechless. How old were they? They had lived for more than 2 eras, and yet they were still children. Could he be more mature? Yin Nuoxing and the others couldn't help but admire them. These 9 temple masters had achieved great merit and had regained their youthful appearance. They looked like youths, but they couldn't be any younger. They were more than 2 eras old, but they still looked like young people. Moreover, this process of regaining their youthful appearance was too thorough. Even their temperaments had returned. Seeing that Empress Jean was about to go berserk, Yin Nuoxing hurriedly carried her down. She couldn't help but laugh bitterly in her heart. Other powers would probably have the Hall Elder in charge, but this 9-deity temple was different. The Great Elder was in charge of the Hall Master. This group of big kids, this old man is also at my wit's end. Little divine child, go and persuade them. When the Great Elder of the Fire God Shrine saw the appearance of the Hall Master and the others, he also lost his temper. Their Hall Master was usually a little better, but once the 9 of them gathered together, the result would be eating, drinking, and watching the sun, each more lively than the other. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes. Even Big Sister Jean couldn't deal with these 9 old urchins, so how could he? Looking at the 9 images, Yin Nuoxing was a little doubtful of life. However, after hesitating for a while, he still rubbed his head and stood in front of the few images. He called out awkwardly, "Senior, I." Suddenly, the 9 of them responded in unison and instantly quieted down. This gave Yin Nuoxing a fright, but she still forcefully encouraged herself. She clasped her hands together as if she was praying. She smiled sweetly and said, "Big sisters, big brothers, please take care of the 9-deity temple." All right. To everyone's surprise, the 9 Hall Masters all agreed at once. This made Yin Nuoxing's jaw drop. Everyone was also a little speechless. Little divine child, come back early. Big sister will bring you to eat the god's feast. Big brother will refine equipment for you. I will bring you around the southern ice world to see the sky curtain peak. After agreeing, the 9 Hall Masters took turns to repeat the same thing, making Yin Nuoxing smile bitterly and quickly agree. Then the 9 of them turned around and left in satisfaction. Everyone, I can see it now. Only Little Star can deal with these 9 clowns. Princess Jean sat on the sofa with a face full of anger. Her arms were crossed in front of her chest, and her soft legs were crossed. That posture was as seductive as it could be, but this goddess temper didn't seem to be very good. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly as he shook his head. He also knew that this was not only because he was the descendant of the mysterious Chief Hall Master, but also because the Hall Masters liked his talent. It could even be said that they liked him as a person. That was why they pampered him so much. Just like Empress Jean and the others, when he occasionally made a request that was a little excessive, they would fulfill it. Even when he was captured, dozens of Emperor God experts jumped out and ran over to save him while shouting that the heavens were overturned. After chatting and sitting down on the sofa, Yin Nuoxing suddenly realized that the Fire God Shrine's Great Elder and Soul Blade were looking at him with shining eyes, making him shiver. He asked weakly, "What's wrong?" The 2 of them looked at each other and sat on the sofa with their elbows on their legs and their hands crossed. They looked at Yin Nuoxing with a serious expression and said, "Little brother, we want to invite you to release some of your blood." Yin Nuoxing was stunned. Almost reflexively, he hid his hands in his sleeves. His face was slightly pale, and his body moved all the way back to Princess Jin's side. He even bumped into her and said with a trembling voice, "What do you want to do?" "Refine medicine." The 2 of them said seriously. You had just bitten Yin Nuoxing's finger and released the red and gold blood. It contained a very strong power and life force. Everyone present felt it. "You have a god spirit blood pulse," Princess Jean softly said. "It contains the memory fragments of an ancient god spirit. That is why you can write in God's language. I think your family's god spirit blood pulse is passed down from an ancient god spirit. This blood has been passed down for dozens or hundreds of generations. In the end, it was passed down to you and did not lose its power. This ancient god spirit's power must have reached a very scary level. How are the levels of the post-God tiers divided? Yin Nuashing frowned. God spirit was a general term for all the post-God elites. He was not clear about some of the divisions. It was said that one could be called a sky god after crossing 4 levels. About that, we will tell you when you come into contact with him. It is pointless to tell you now. Princess Jean waved her hand. She did not explain the post-God tiers to him. Yin Nuashing was helpless. Seeing the green light in Soul Blade's eyes, he shuddered slightly and clenched his fists. After a long while, he sighed and nodded with a bitter smile. His finger suddenly slid across his wrist. A golden-red blood mark quickly appeared and turned into a small stream. It flowed down his palm and dripped in the air. Drops of blood condensed together. The red and gold blood condensed in the air. A very strong life force and a strange energy wave slowly spread out. That power made everyone's faces freeze. There was a feeling of desire in their souls. Yu, who had just had her fill, could not help but drool. Mei Mao stared at the ball of red and gold blood that was growing bigger. She wanted to pass by Mei Mao. Okay. That's enough. Princess Jean saw his pale face. Mei Mao's heart ached. She held his wrist and pressed on the wound. The blood stopped flowing. The last drop of blood flowed down his finger and fell into the ball of blood. It condensed into a ball of blood the size of a fist. It was rich with life force and even had a sweet smell. Yin Nuashing's eyelids drooped. His right hand gently rubbed his left hand, which was a little cold from excessive bleeding. He lifted his pale face and smiled at everyone. Soul Knife quickly used a high-quality jade bottle to keep the ball of blood. Then, they looked at Yin Nuashing and nodded. Don't worry, we will not treat your contribution unfairly. Yin Nuashing shrugged and stretched. He let out a long yawn. His eyelids trembled as if he was about to fall asleep. Xian and the other 3 saw this and quickly walked over. But before they could sit down, Yin Nuashing suddenly opened his eyes wide. He said in shock, I still have to go somewhere. Where? Everyone was stunned. Zhu Yuan Pavilion. Yin Nuashing replied softly. He thought of the woman who was glowing with white light. She was as pure as the fairy of the 9 heavens, but she had the aura of a great demon. The 2 of them had been playing chess the last time they met. If you have time in the future, play chess with me. That indifferent voice seemed to linger in Yin Nuashing's heart. Every time he thought of it, his heart would skip a beat. Who exactly was that woman who was like a demon and a saint? Even when he thought of it now, he still felt shocked. The pressure that the figure gave him seemed to have penetrated 10 years of time and affected him now. She said that she would play chess with him when she had time. This was only the 2nd time he had seen Zhu Yuan Mountain Villa. There should be a Zhu Yuan Pavilion here as well. Yin Nuashing said and moved, walking directly out of the hall. Everyone hurriedly followed at the side. This guy just finished bleeding, but he didn't even rest quietly. The Zhu Yuan Pavilion in Starfall City was no different from Yin Nuashing's impression. It was just that there were no 8 long corridors outside the small island in the middle of the lake. There was only a long wooden bridge that extended to the small island. But there was still a faint woody fragrance here. It was very pleasant. Yin Nuashing looked at the lake with some extravagant hope. Now that the event had ended, most of the experts had left. Less than 20% of the people were still here to enjoy the immortal banquet. However, there was no one at the Zhu Yuan Lake. It was as if no one was paying attention to this place. We won't go up. You can go by yourself. Be careful. Empress Jean patted his back and said softly. She had heard about the Zhu Yuan Pavilion from Jin Jinwang. Yin Nuashing seemed to be the only person who could go up to the Zhu Yuan Pavilion this time. Yin Nuashing nodded and walked towards the small island in the Zhu Yuan Lake. His footsteps made creaking sounds on the wooden bridge. This time, when he stepped on the wooden bridge in the small mountain, he didn't have the same reaction as when he stepped on the small island in the middle of the lake. There was no power peeking into his memory. This made him feel slightly relieved. The small mountain was very quiet. There was no sound at all. Strange flowers and shrubs were planted along the winding path of the small mountain. Accompanied by the strange woody fragrance, Yin Nuashing walked very slowly. However, the small mountain wasn't very high. After a while, he stood halfway up the mountain. He looked at the small pavilion at the top of the mountain and felt inexplicably nervous. He turned around and saw Xian and the others looking forward to him. They seemed to be waving their hands to cheer him on. This made him chuckle. He turned around and strode towards the Zhu Yuan pavilion. The appearance of the Zhu Yuan pavilion was exactly the same as in his memory. It was as if it was printed from the same mold, except that there was no 9-step staircase. The winding mountain path led straight to the Zhu Yuan pavilion. After turning a corner, his gaze was fixed on the Zhu Yuan pavilion. He crossed a fence and landed on the stone bench. However, he did not see that godlike figure. Yin Nuoxing could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He was so nervous in his heart, as if he was afraid to see that figure. Standing in front of the Zhu Yuan pavilion, looking at the 2 stone benches and the stone table with a chessboard on it, those memories came to his mind. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. Speaking of that chess game, it was really unbearable. It was a moonless and windy night. He was pressed against the chessboard by a goddess and rubbed against it hundreds of times. How tragic. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. Looking at the Zhu Yuan pavilion in front of him, he took a deep breath and stepped into the pavilion. "You're here." A pleasant voice suddenly sounded behind him. It was gentle but emotionless. There was a hint of mechanical coldness, but there was also a special charm. However, when he heard this voice, Yin Nuoxing's body suddenly stiffened. His handsome face turned slightly pale. Chapter 583. The faint fog appeared abruptly and without any warning, as though it had seeped out from the void. It quickly enveloped the small island in the heart-gathering lake. The dense fog gave people the illusion that it was far away but right in front of their eyes, as though it was a fairy island. The Golden Empress and the others who were watching from the lakeside were slightly taken aback. However, they seemed to have experience in this area and weren't too surprised. In terms of surprise, Yin Nuoxing, who had disappeared into the fog, was even more astonished. His astonishment stemmed from the beautiful figure emitting a faint white light behind him. Gulp, Yin Nuoxing couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He slowly and stiffly turned his head. After turning 360 degrees for half a minute, he saw the beautiful figure staring straight at him with a pair of beautiful and calm eyes. Now that his cultivation had reached the demon rank, he could feel the strange aura of this beautiful figure. She was both a saint and a demon. She looked as perfect and inviolable as a fairy, but she emitted an extremely terrifying demonic aura, as though she was a great demon. "Let's play chess." The girl's red lips parted slightly as she said the 2 words that made Yin Nuoxing collapse. Her jade-like hand even tapped on the stone table in front of her. Yin Nuoxing scratched his head in distress. He still vaguely remembered that time when he lost 26 consecutive games of chess, to the point that he cried. "It's fine. My attainments in arrays are much higher than before. As the saying goes, playing chess is like setting up arrays. This time I should be able to. I shouldn't lose so badly. Let's set a small goal and win 1 game first." Yin Nuoxing encouraged himself in his heart. "All right." Yin Nuoxing nodded and sat down on the stone stool opposite the woman with a strong fighting spirit. His fingers reached into the chess box with a clatter. The girl, Mei Mao, had been staring at him the entire time. When she saw him like this, she remained calm and indifferent. Just like last time, she placed a white chess piece on the chessboard without any explanation. After about 10 minutes, Yin Nuoxing's face twitched, and sweat kept rolling down her forehead. She looked speechlessly and helplessly at the chessboard that was 2/3 occupied by white pieces, and the shadow in her heart appeared again. Yin Nuoxing raised his head and looked at that flawless face. He saw that she was still quietly looking at him without saying a word. Even when they were playing chess, her bright Mei Mao didn't move away from his face. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Can you let me play for a while?" The girl stared straight at him. Mei Mao was a little hollow. She didn't say anything and didn't even seem to be breathing. She was like a jade sculpture, frozen in place. Yin Nuoxing was also in a daze. He stared straight into the eyes of the Mei Mao. At this moment, his body and mind became extremely calm and ethereal. Unknowingly, he let go of the messy thoughts in his mind. Ta! The crisp sound rang out again. The chessboard that was full of chess pieces was unknowingly cleared. The girl held a white chess piece in her hand and placed it on the chessboard. Yin Nuoxing also fished out a black chess piece from the chess box. However, his colorful eyes were tightly glued to the beautiful Mei Mao. He didn't look away. He didn't even look at the chessboard. He just casually placed the black chess piece beside the white chess piece. In the pavilion, the crisp ticking sound rang out again. One chess piece after another was casually placed on the chessboard. However, this time, the two of them looked straight at each other and didn't look at the chessboard after a long time. Yin Nuoxing looked away with a pitiful smile. He looked at the chessboard that was mostly occupied by white chess pieces. Although it was slightly better than the previous game, it was still a crushing defeat. Again, later I want to make the first move in this game. Ugh. Damn it, I made the wrong move. No. Stop, you can't make the move there. Ah. The calmness Yin Nuoxing had when he played chess was equal to the dejection he felt after the game. The girl's every move was ruthless. He didn't have the strength to fight back at all. He could only retreat again and again. His face kept turning pale until it was almost transparent. After feeling that a long time had passed, Yin Nuoxing twisted his stiff neck and looked at the mountain range outside the pavilion. The sky was still blue and white. A few clouds were drifting peacefully. Looking at the oddly shaped clouds, Yin Nuoxing felt that they were mocking him. When he came back to his senses, he lowered his head to look at the chessboard. He suddenly realized that he had made a wrong move. He was shocked. Coincidentally, the girl also aimed at that point. She picked up a white chess piece and was about to place it on that fatal move. Wait! Yin Nuoxing was so scared that his face turned pale. He hurriedly reached out and grabbed the girl's wrist. He looked nervously at the bright Mei Mao. A drop of sweat flowed from his forehead to his chin. The girl looked at him calmly. There was an unquestionable expression on her face. Her hand moved slightly. Yin Nuoxing used all his strength, but he couldn't even control her hand. No, sister goddess, sister fairy, please don't. Stop. Yin Nuoxing was scared out of his wits by the white chess pieces that kept getting closer to the chessboard. He immediately started babbling nonsense. He had lost 48 *king games in a row. This time, there was finally a sign that he was going to win. Could she let him win one game? It seemed that his strange words had an effect. The girl's hand trembled slightly, and she actually stopped. Mei Mao had a strange expression on her face for the first time. Seeing that she had stopped, Yin Nuoxing took a deep breath. The white chess piece was less than an inch away from the chessboard. Mei Mao stared straight at Yin Nuoxing. Her willowy eyebrows curved slightly, as if she was hesitating. After a long while, she actually moved the white chess piece. Just as she was about to place it in an insignificant corner, Yin Nuoxing pressed her hand again, causing her willowy eyebrows to tremble slightly again. Yin Nuoxing laughed bitterly. He moved her hand back and placed it in the position she had originally planned to place it. Then, he pressed the white chess piece down. He smiled bitterly and said, "Thinking about it, it doesn't seem very interesting if we win like this. Forget it." Mei Mao blinked slightly. There seemed to be a flash of emotion in her eyes. However, Yin Nuoxing couldn't see it clearly. He only felt that Mei Mao's eyes flickered for a moment. Let's set a small goal first. Don't cry. Yin Nuoxing placed his hand on his chest and laughed bitterly in his heart. It was already the 48th game. If he continued to lose, he would definitely cry. The girl waved her hand gently, and the chessboard changed. Mei Mao stared straight at Yin Nuoxing. Then, she made a move first. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly. He could only nod and continue to follow. The sky gradually darkened. In this place where the sun couldn't be seen, a faint yellow color gradually appeared on the horizon. A brilliant fireball was burning and sinking, driving away the dense fog here. In the sky, two round moons quietly appeared. The cold moonlight and the scorching sunlight faced each other, turning the entire world into two scenes. The two types of radiance poured out a strange light screen that spread across the sky. It was incomparably brilliant. In the small pavilion, Yun Nuashing turned his stiff neck and looked at the slowly sinking fireball. His eyes were misty, and there was a wisp of mist covering his eyes. The mist kept condensing, and he actually really cried, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm not playing anymore. You're bullying me. You're bullying me again." Yin Nuashing burst into tears. He pushed the chessboard away with both hands and lay on the stone table, crying silently. This was too much of a bully. There were a total of 100 games and 3 different types of chess, but he didn't win a single game. It could be said that the more heroic he was at the beginning, the more devastated he was at the end. He lost so much that his nose was sore. In the end, he couldn't hold back his tears. Seeing that he was still acting like a child like last time, Mei Mao still indifferently stuck to him. Her eyelids drooped slightly, and her lily-white hands put away the chessboard on the stone table. Then, she placed a pot of tea on the table. The fragrance of the tea was dense. She then took out 2 cups and filled them. She gently pushed 1 cup in front of Yin Nuashing and took the other cup for herself. She took a sip and said, "Idiot." Bam! Yin Nuashing suddenly slammed the table and jumped up. His eyes were red as he stared at the girl. He grabbed the cup on the table and didn't care that the tea was still hot. He raised his head and drank it in 1 gulp. Then, he shouted softly, "Yes. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. Why are you bullying an idiot like me?" After shouting, Yin Nuashing froze. He quickly lowered his head and said softly, "I'm sorry. I lost my composure." After saying that, he laughed bitterly in his heart. All his years of self-restraint had been completely wasted today. Just a game of chess could make his state of mind collapse. It seemed like he was still too childish. "You're not playing anymore?" The girl took a sip of tea and said indifferently, "You're still playing after losing all 100 games? Are you trying to force me to jump down from here?" Yin Nuashing's cheeks twitched wildly. He looked at her with a face full of fear. He sighed softly and shook his head, saying, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm tired." After saying that, he stretched his body. His entire body crackled as if a switch had been turned on. He couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the sky that was gradually being eroded by the darkness of the night. Unknowingly, he had played for an entire day. His entire body was stiff. He didn't know if Princess Jean and the rest were worried about him. The girl nodded her chin and slowly stood up. Her long black hair and dress that dragged on the floor like a cloud also slowly stretched out. However, even when the girl stood up completely, a large part of her long hair and dress still dragged on the floor. Her white, jade-like hands fell into the wide, long sleeves of her robe. Her entire body was wrapped up in a pink dress, leaving only her flawless, beautiful face exposed. The girl's pitch black, Mei Mao glanced at Yin Nuashing. She walked past him with light steps and even tugged at his sleeve. Then, she walked out of the gazebo. Yin Nuashing was stunned. He watched as she walked toward the mountain path outside the gazebo. He turned back to look at the stone table. The chessboard had already disappeared. He turned back again. The girl was standing in the distance and looking back at him. Her Mei Mao was glowing slightly, as if she wanted to say something. Seeing her like this, Yin Nuashing scratched his head and sighed slightly. He also gently lifted his feet and walked towards her. The girl only turned back when he reached her side. She stared blankly at the flat mountain path under her feet. After a long while, she lifted her feet and took a step. She looked like a puppet that lacked intelligence. Her movements were a little stiff. Yin Nuashing frowned slightly. However, he quickly relaxed. He turned his head to look at her and asked softly, "What's your name?" However, the girl didn't answer him. She was like a fine sculpture, a perfect piece of art that lacked vitality. Yin Nuashing was unwilling to give up and asked a few more times. However, she didn't answer him. He could only sigh helplessly. Finally, he asked casually, "Where are we going?" "To look at the moon." To his surprise, the girl finally spoke. She seemed to be a woman of few words. Yin Nuashing was stunned. He turned his head strangely. "To look at the moon?" "All right." The moon was almost at the top of the sky. The galaxy had appeared, and the sun had completely set. It was a good time to look at the moon. Yin Nuoxing casually looked around. He remembered that she said this place was Mount Wanlong. As for the mountain peak they were on, no, it was the mountain peak where the gazebo was located. It was called Dragon Head Peak. They didn't know when they walked out of that mountain peak and were now walking on a very flat mountain ridge. Yin Nuoxing turned his head and could see a mountain peak not far away. A gazebo stood alone on the mountain peak. This mountain ridge stretched across the front of the mountain peak. Not far in front of them, there was a man-made high platform. There was also a huge starstone erected there that sparkled with starlight. Chapter 584. The high platform was made from a huge starstone. Standing on it and looking down, it was as if he was standing in the star field. The surrounding starlight was twinkling, and the aura of the stars was constantly spreading out. It was as if he was really standing in the star field. Looking up, facing the purple moonlight, the thousands of galaxies that illuminated the sky poured countless starlight from afar towards the god's world, illuminating the sky thousands of light years away. The brilliant star field was eternally far away, and the black land that was dotted with starlight was so attractive. Yin Nuoxing slowly lay on the high platform of the starstone, quietly gazing at the galaxy. The endless starlight shone on his body, and his colorful pupils were like mirrors reflecting the stars, brilliant and gorgeous. The black sky, the sky full of stars, the purple moonlight, and the endless starlight intertwined to form a brilliant curtain of light, constantly changing in the sky. It was quiet all around. Yin Nuoxing gazed at the stars in the sky. It was so quiet that he could hear his own breathing, and he could also hear the breathing of the girl beside him. She was sitting on the ground with her legs bent, hugging her knees with both hands, while Mei Mao was looking at the moon in a daze. The things that the two of them were paying attention to were not the same. One was looking at the countless stars, while the other was looking at the moon that was close at hand. One had a peaceful smile on his face, while the other was expressionless, like a jade carving. But at the same time, the two of them were very lost in thought. Their minds were no longer in the same place, and they didn't know where they had flown to. The starlight in the star field was twinkling, and thousands of stars were squeezed into his line of sight, making Yin Nuoxing fascinated. He muttered to himself in his heart, "I wonder where the other stars with life are?" Traveling in the star field was very dangerous. It was difficult to travel long distances in the star field unless one was at the god underworld level. Even gods could get lost in the star field if they weren't careful and never return. It's said that the god's world is very big, but compared to the entire starry sky, the god's world is probably just a drop in the ocean. Yin Nuoxing sighed in his heart. His mood was a little strange. In his broken memories, he saw the existence of other worlds. Those worlds seemed to be other worlds that he had been to before, other planets with life. He didn't know where those places were. Did the starry sky hint from the heaven-defying ultimate God ask him to leave the divine realm and head somewhere? Until now, he still did not understand what the note was trying to tell him. Perhaps he would only know when he returned to the divine prefecture. The starry sky is unchanging. The life of a star can be as long as 1,000,000 years or as long as several epochs. The human world has been replaced countless times. "Oh, Xingqian," Yin Nuoxing muttered to himself. After he finished speaking, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He really did yearn for the starry sky. Yin Nuoxing watched the two moons shift bit by bit until they sank to the other side of the sky. The night would end in another 4 hours. Only then did he stand up and stare at the stars for the entire night. He felt that his state of mind seemed to have changed a little and became more peaceful. Moreover, this was a familiar galaxy. In other words, they were in the god's world. This made him even more convinced that this so-called Myriad Dragon Mountain might be in some corner of the god's world. The girl also slowly stood up. Mei Mao, who was frozen on the two moons, slowly turned around and looked at Yin Nuoxing again. Her gaze was dull and empty. At this moment, her gaze made him tremble slightly. He seemed to see some strange scenes through those Mei Mao. Within those Mei Mao, there was only him. Everything around him was darkness, or rather, nothingness. Yin Nuoxing was a little absent-minded and sighed. This girl, Mei Mao, was very vicissitudes of life. It was as if she had seen through the changes in the world. She had sunk into the long river of time and drifted for an unknown number of years. The thick aura of time seemed to be able to affect the flow of time. This also made him not dare to treat her as an ordinary girl. She was also a peerless expert who was terrifyingly strong. Yin Nuoxing didn't know her strength yet, but he guessed that she was at the peak of the God Emperor realm, or even someone at that level. Mei Mao sized up Yin Nuoxing from head to toe. She looked at him until his hair stood on end and goosebumps appeared all over his body. After that, he saw her stretch out her jade-like hand and place it on his stomach. Then, she suddenly pressed down. That slender, jade-like hand seemed to be powerless, but caused Yin Nuoxing to frown in pain. He gave a light groan, his heart also shocked by her action. Although he instinctively wanted to run away, after measuring the strength of the two of them, he obediently restrained that unrealistic thought, in case he didn't have to suffer before he could escape. "What are you doing?" Yin Nuoxing frowned. Before he could finish his sentence, he suddenly saw a glowing hole in his stomach. His jaw dropped in shock. However, what shocked him even more was that the girl's jade-like hand directly reached into the glowing hole, as if it was connected to a second space. Crack! A strange sound came from within his body, startling him. He quickly raised his head and saw the girl's calm face. He panicked slightly and wanted to ask her to stop, but he only saw her stretch out her hand in front of him, as if not allowing him to speak. That jade-like hand grabbed his shoulder, then the right hand that reached into his body suddenly pulled. With a wave of her lily-white hand, she inserted them all into the huge star stone on the high platform, forming a circle in front of her. Yin Nuoxing thought that the girl had finished. He wiped the sweat off his forehead. Just as he was about to exhale, he was stunned to see the girl's lily-white hand suddenly reach out in front of him. She pulled open his collar and pulled out the purple-red pendant. Yin Nuoxing was so frightened that he wanted to scream. However, when he saw the girl pull out the pendant, he was stunned. Before he could say anything, the girl's lily-white hand pulled out the pendant. A few rays of light flashed and appeared in front of her. One of them was the incomplete weapon, the Sun Cross, made from the Sun Blood Crystal. The moment this huge cross appeared, the lunar platform emitted a cold light, as if it was confronting it. And the other thing that she took out made Yin Nuoxing a little astonished. It was the Encyclopedia of Plants in the God Realm that Qin Hui gave him. Although he already knew that this book was not normal 10 years ago, he did not study it and made any name for it. Other than occasionally seeing pages in the book turn into formations, talismans, or even other profound skills, he did not touch it himself. Myriad Realm Book. After the girl took the book in her hand, she said these 4 words indifferently. This made Yin Nuoxing very puzzled. What was the Myriad Realm Book? It sounded very impressive. That's right. Uncle Qin's ancestral home is the Qin family. Then, when they migrated, it's not surprising that they took something from the Qin family. When he thought of this, Yin Nuoxing nodded. He stared blankly at her, wanted to hear her explanation. Seeing his curious and expectant gaze, the girl only glanced at him indifferently. She lowered her head and flipped through the book in her hand, causing a certain good student to feel dejected. Death Valley. Do you still remember? It's the world that this book leads to. You've been there once. The girl quietly flipped through the book. She did not even raise her head as she calmly said these words. This caused Yin Nuoxing to tremble all over. He still remembered Death Valley. He vaguely remembered it. He had been there once when he was in Yuyan City. However, it might not be appropriate to say that he had been there, because he had not been there. Now that he thought about it, if what this girl said was true and this book led to that world, then he might have gone to Death Valley with only his spiritual body or soul body. It was no different from his physical body. Myriad Realm Book. So that's what it is. I've long felt that there was something wrong with this book of yours. I didn't expect it to be the Myriad Realm Book. In his soul, Zai choked on his tea when he heard these words. He coughed and said after a long while, in the Myriad Realm Book, The method to open it determines the state it's in when it's opened. This is why you sometimes see arrays or talismans written all over it. However, this is only the most superficial way to use it. The Myriad Realm book contains 10,000 worlds. Z smiled mysteriously. He felt that Yin Yaxing's mind was fluctuating greatly. He then continued, "Of course, it doesn't mean that there are 10,000 worlds in this book. It only says that this book can lead to 10,000 worlds. However, 10,000 is only a superficial number. I don't know how many worlds there are." In the primordial era, the Myriad Realm book was a mystical tool that could rank in the top 100. Your array book is not complicated at all compared to this Myriad Realm book. Hearing these in different words, Yin Yaxing's face twitched. He had personally seen how complicated the array book was. However, Z said that it was not as complicated as the Myriad Realm book. However, he tacitly agreed with this statement. A book that led to countless worlds and recorded countless pieces of knowledge. This book was truly worthy of being called an encyclopedia. A sudden soft sound pulled Yin Yaxing out of his deep thoughts. He hurriedly raised his head to take a look, only to see the girl looking up at him indifferently. The plant encyclopedia of the divine realm in her hands had already been closed, and her two slender hands were holding it. Seeing him look over, the girl took a light breath and said indifferently, "I need you to enter the Myriad Realm book and take something out." Chapter 585. Rubbing his head, Yin Yaxing walked back to the Ju Yuan Pavilion. He turned around and looked at the lonely figure on the star platform. He frowned slightly and kept rubbing his fingers in his sleeves. His heart was in a mess. "Leave the blood crystal and take the rest. Go and deal with your matters. I'll wait for you here. Come back soon." Touching the black pearl in front of his forehead, Yin Yaxing's strange expression became more and more profound. In between his eyebrows, besides the imprint of the deity left by Xianyin, there was another imprint. It was a seed imprint that coexisted with the deity imprint. The two of them seemed to be equally matched. In other words, that girl was probably at the same level as the deity imprint. Behind these two imprints, there was a scarlet ball of light and a colorful ball of light. Yin Yaxing had discovered them a long time ago. However, no matter how he touched them, there was no reaction, so he simply ignored them. Even now, they were still glowing. Until now, he did not know what use they had. Suddenly raising his head, Yin Yaxing seemed to have thought of something. At that time, he had obtained a scroll of the celestial glaze god in Yuyan City. However, he had not been able to open it. Now that he had encountered a deity, perhaps he could ask her for help. But to his disappointment, the space in front of him was filled with mist, and the slender, white figure gradually disappeared in the mist. He couldn't help but let out a sigh. Next time, I'll definitely remember it. The fog seemed to appear from the void and completely covered the space outside the pavilion. Standing in the Ju Yuan Pavilion, Yin Yaxing could only see a vast expanse of whiteness. The fog could not touch the pavilion. It seemed to be isolated by something. However, this scene did not last long. The thick fog slowly dissipated. What appeared in front of Yin Yaxing again was not a beautiful and magnificent mountain. Instead, it was a small lake and a small mountain. Beside the lake, there was a group of people looking at the pavilion on the mountain. They were looking forward to it. "I'm back." Yin Yaxing was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly. He did not feel the activation of the array, nor did he feel the change in energy. He just went from one place to another. It's out, it's out." Seeing that the mist around the gazebo had dissipated and Yin Yaxing's figure appeared in their sight, the Golden Empress and the others were also slightly delighted. Xian and the others hurriedly stretched out their hands and waved, their beautiful faces brimming with joy. Seeing everyone like that, Yin Yaxing couldn't help but laugh. She missed them a little after not seeing them for a day. When he thought of this, he quickly walked down the mountain and crossed the wooden bridge. However, before he reached the group, he saw that everyone was looking at him with a strange expression. That strange expression seemed to contain a few strange emotions, causing him to be stunned. He muttered to himself, Why do I have an ominous feeling? Little Xing Xing, you've finally come out. It's already been 3 days. Seeing him walk over, Ziyin went up to him with a smile. 3 days? But it's only been a day. Yin Nuoxing was stunned. She couldn't help but feel speechless. This time difference was probably that girl's masterpiece. Are you worried? Yin Nuoxing smiled and rubbed her head. Ziyin pursed her lips and pulled him back. When they reached the group, she let him go. Then, Mei Mao looked at him with a smile and retreated to the side. He was stunned. Was she going to sentence him? What was going on? The Golden Empress rubbed her forehead. Mei Mao glanced at him, then looked at Qin Yin, who was beside her with a calm expression. She sighed, then took out a red wedding invitation from her earring and handed it to Yin Nuoxing. She smiled bitterly and said, "See for yourself." Yin Nuoxing was stunned when he received the wedding invitation. The ominous premonition in his heart was completely confirmed. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Qin Yin. The latter felt uncomfortable under his gaze. She quietly turned around and walked to the side. Everyone smiled bitterly when they saw this. Seeing Qin Yin's reaction, Yin Nuoxing laughed dryly. He swallowed his saliva and opened the wedding invitation with trembling hands. When he saw the names Yin Nuoxing and Qin Yin, he almost vomited blood. However, when he saw clearly that it was only an engagement invitation, he heaved a sigh of relief. What's going on? Yin Nuoxing's forehead was dripping with sweat. He turned his head stiffly and looked at the Golden Empress and the others with wide, colorful eyes. We want to ask what's going on. Seeing his strange expression, everyone widened their eyes in shock. They were the ones who didn't understand the situation. We thought that Little Star and Sister Yin were in love with each other. Ziyin blinked at Mei Mao in shock and said strangely, "We were waiting for you to come out and congratulate her." "Girl, are you trying to make me angry?" Yin Nuoxing felt like he was going crazy when he heard her say this. "No, I'm just thinking that if you and Big Sister Yin become friends, then I have to build a good relationship with Big Sister Yin and pay respects to her." Ziyin blinked her beautiful eyes and smiled like a brilliant rose blooming, causing everyone to be absent-minded. Seeing that she really didn't seem to care, Yin Nuoxing was at a loss for words. He opened his mouth wide and didn't know what to say. "Little Star, go and see her. You two can chat for a while." Yuanshi patted him on the shoulder and said softly. Yin Nuoxing smiled bitterly when he heard this. He turned his gaze and looked at Qin Yin, who was standing alone by the lake not far away. Her black dress swayed in the wind like a black lotus. Seeing her like this, Yin Nuoxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He scratched his head and nodded, then ran over. Seeing the two's strange expressions, everyone looked at each other. Mei Mao also had a strange light in her eyes. She couldn't help but mutter, "That old man Qin Hai didn't even tell us." It's impossible for such a big thing to be decided unilaterally. Could it be that he wants Little Star to marry into the Qin family? Little Star doesn't have any family. A few big forces know about it. We also didn't announce the return of the child of God to the outside world. That's why it's like this, the Fire God Shrine Great Elder said softly. We didn't find a good time. We'll announce it when we have the chance. Now, Jean Sherwang shook her head and looked at the two figures. She sighed and said, "Let's leave it at that for now." Ziyin and Mei Mao smiled as they watched Yin Nuoxing run to Qin Yan's side. The others looked at her strangely. Everyone knew that she was infatuated with Little Star to the point that she couldn't extricate herself. However, she could still give the person she liked to someone else. This, they didn't know what to say. Yin Nuoxing ran to Qin Yan's side. He took a deep breath and looked up. He looked at the quiet and beautiful side profile. His mouth opened for a while, but he sighed and shook his head. Hearing this complex sigh, Qin Yin slowly turned her gaze away from the lake. She looked at the handsome face that was somewhat bewitching, and her beautiful eyes flickered. Although this face looked a lot like a girl's, there was also a hint of masculinity in it. At first glance, it was quite breathtaking. As the goddess of the Qin family, she always attended banquets and events. She boasted that she had seen many people. Whether it was noble young masters or talented geniuses, she had seen all kinds of people. However, she had never seen someone so unforgettable. Since the first time she saw him at the Tana's water god temple, he had left an afterimage in her mind that she couldn't get rid of. She never thought that one day she would choose to travel with him and travel around the god realm. After the Taiyuan grand gathering ended, Qin Hai asked her what her plans were. She almost blurted out the words travel with Yun Nuoxing, which led to the marriage contract. However, the result was that she wanted to go back in time and kill herself. What do you think? What do you think? The two of them spoke almost at the same time, causing both of them to be taken aback for a moment. Their eyes met, and they both burst into laughter. Yin Nuoxing scratched his head awkwardly, while Qin Yin ran her fingers through her hair awkwardly. Whatever you think is best. Whatever young Master Yun thinks is best. The two of them spoke at the same time. Both of them lowered their heads and blushed slightly. You go first. Ladies first. Yin Nuoxing coughed dryly and chuckled. Qin Yin turned around. Mei Mao stared straight at him. Her red lips parted slightly, but she suddenly closed them again and pressed them tightly together. Mei Mao hesitated. Speak frankly. There's nothing to be afraid of. No one will force you to do anything. Neither will I. Yin Nuoxing chuckled and waved his hand when he saw that she seemed to have something to say. Qin Yin nodded when she heard that. She clenched her jade-like hands tightly together and took a deep breath. She said hesitantly, I told father and mother, I don't want to get married so early. I thought that nothing would happen, but in the end, she couldn't help but laugh bitterly. In the end, she got engaged. Yin Nuoxing felt a little strange, especially since he was the one who caused this situation. It made him feel even weirder. It felt like he had shot himself in the foot. However, we didn't say when we had to get married, so Qin Yin smiled awkwardly. Her jade-like hands fidgeted uneasily. Drag it out as long as you can, but dragging it out like this isn't a solution. The main point is, what do you think? You know, or rather, all of you know what's wrong with me. So, the most important thing is, what do you think? Yin Nuoxing crossed his arms in his sleeves and sighed softly. Qin Yin panicked when she heard that. Mei Mao's eyes kept flickering, but she couldn't find a focal point. I don't know either. I don't even know what I'm thinking. After a while, Qin Yin shook her head in distress. Her eyebrows were intertwined with complicated thoughts. Then I'll ask you directly. If someone else got engaged to you, how would you feel? Yin Nuoxing put her hands on her hips and asked in a bad mood. How could this girl not even know what she was thinking? I would probably hate it. Qin Yin panicked. Her heart was beating wildly like a little deer. Now that I'm engaged to you, how do you feel? Yin Nuoxing took a deep breath and asked again. I don't hate it, Qin Yin blurted out. After she finished speaking, her delicate body trembled. She lowered her head even more, and her pretty face was so red that it was almost burning. Yin Nuoxing was shocked by this answer. This answer seemed to be somewhat out of his expectations. Little star, oh little star, who told you to flirt around everywhere? This time, something really happened. Who told you to flirt around everywhere? Let's see how you're going to clean up this mess. In the spiritual world, Ziyi, who was reading a book, slammed his head on the table when he heard this. Lan Xener, who was sitting opposite him, was shocked. She looked at him with a cup of tea in her hand. Then she smiled and said, Brother Nuoxing is so outstanding. Many people will like him, especially those who have interacted with him before. When Yin Nuoxing heard these words in his mind, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. Then he let out a long sigh and replied fiercely in his heart, I don't think anyone will like me. There must be something wrong with this world. Looking at Qin Yin, whose pretty face was still flickering with a conflicted expression, Yin Nuoxing shook his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He reached out and patted her shoulder. She was so frightened that her delicate body trembled. After a while, she calmed down. Mei Mao looked at him with some panic. He then said helplessly, Live your life however you want. No one can force you to make a choice. You are the main character in your world. Chapter 586. Everyone in the distance craned their necks to look at the two people strolling on the shore. They were gossipy and wanted to eavesdrop, but Yin Nuashing blocked their words, making everyone's hearts itch. Only Xian didn't care. She sat by the lake with her legs bent, humming a song, as if everything had nothing to do with her. Xian, do you really not care? Fenger asked softly as she leaned against her and sat down gently. Xian smiled and shook her head. She turned to look at her and said with a smile, Fenger, I'm really not worried about anything. Little Star's decision is up to him. Xian and Mei Mao glanced at the two people. A touch of tenderness flashed in Mei Mao's eyes. As long as Yin Nuashing was fine, it was fine. She wouldn't think too much about anything else. She loved him and tolerated everything about him, so she wouldn't resist his choice. After a long while, the two people walked around the lake. When they came back, their faces were very calm. There was no trace of emotion, which confused everyone. However, the two didn't say anything. Qinyan was still so quiet, and Yin Nuashing just smiled mysteriously. Neither of them said anything. Let nature take its course. Everyone looked at each other and looked at the two with strange eyes. They sighed inexplicably. They didn't know what the two little guys were doing. If they said it was harmonious, there seemed to be a strange atmosphere. If they said it was happy, there was no intimacy between the two of them. It could only be said that it was a little ambiguous. While everyone was thinking, Xian saw that Yin Nuashing and Fenger had walked far away. She smiled, took Fenger's hand, stood up, and trotted after them. When everyone saw this, they sighed and followed unhurriedly. Now, of course, I'm going to take a look at the void fire that I yearn for day and night. I'm going to take a look at it. As they walked, Xian casually asked where they were going. Yin Nuashing answered without thinking. But after she finished speaking, she turned around and looked at the large group of people. There seemed to be too many people. The Mei Mao caught a glimpse of Jin Wang's helpless gaze and turned back to look at him. She seemed to have understood something. Mei Mao turned around and looked at Jin Wang. She smiled and said, Little Stone, send the children back first. They have all broken through to the demon rank. It's time to accept the inheritance of the temple. F***CK. Can you not go back? Let's play for a little longer. No, let's train with Little Star for a little longer. We're willing to go on our way now. That's right. It won't be too late to accept the inheritance after becoming a demigod. Before Jin Wang and the others could say anything, Jin Ying and the others exploded. It was as if the 9 temples were hell. Everyone's faces turned pale at the mention of going back. Jin Wang saw their resistance and smiled bitterly. He carefully glanced at the Jin Queen, only to see her smiling at the 9 people. Her bright forehead darkened. Mei Mao's eyes contained a very intimidating light. Even Yin Nuashing was frightened. Yao Hua and the others were so frightened that they instantly shut their mouths. They hurriedly looked at Yin Nuashing. There was a hint of pleading in their eyes. Well, actually, you see, the place we're going to this time is very far away. It's inconvenient to have so many people. You should listen to Sister Jean and go back to cultivate first. Besides, you've been surpassed by me again. You still need to work hard. Yin Nuashing looked at Yao Hua and the others with pity. She raised her head and patted Yao Hua's shoulder with a fake smile. F***CK. Little Star, you're so mean. Yao Hua widened his eyes and looked at him with gritted teeth. He was very unhappy that he had abandoned them at this time. Be good, go back first. Yin Nuashing laughed carelessly. She looked at Jin Ying and habitually reached out to pat her head. Jin Ying rolled her eyes at her, but did not argue about not going back. She nodded gloomily. Seeing that she had directly surrendered, Yao Hua and the others tactfully shut up. When Empress Jean saw that her words were not as effective as Little Star's action, she speechlessly covered her face. This 9 divine shrine was really under his control. The Hall Master and the others listened to him. Even the future 9 divine kings listened to him. Even they were circling around him. Empress Jean looked around again and said a few words to Jin Wang and the great elder of the Fire God Shrine. The latter and the others nodded. Jin Wang took out the golden bell bottle and a golden longbow and handed them to the former. Then, he retreated to the side. It seemed that the group of people from the Nine Divine Shrine had been pushed back by Empress Jean, leaving her alone. But she also felt a little helpless. There were really a lot of Emperor gods around Yunuashing. Not to mention that there were close to 30 Emperor gods in the Nine Divine Shrine. There were 6 demon emperors who had been subdued by Feng Air. Although she did not know what the Mountain Emperor and the others were thinking, the Empress seemed to want to follow that little guy for a while. That meant that there were at least 7 Emperor gods following Yun Nuashing and the others. This was also why she asked Jin Wang and the others to go back first. The Nine Divine Shrine was located in the northern wilderness of the Divine Continent, bordering the area that the demon world had asked for. They were the first line of defense, and her group was also a part of the core strength. At this time, it was better not to leave the shrine for too long. On the other side, Yin Nuashing and the others were saying goodbye to Jining and the others one by one. He gave each of them a gentle hug. Huaji also whispered a few words to him, saying that she would wait for him to return to the Divine Continent. This was a promise. He also smiled and agreed. At that time, he had promised to find a divine flame for this girl. Child, be careful. The divine flame, ranked 25th, is not easy to deal with. Safety is the most important thing. When the young people finished saying their goodbyes, the beautiful woman walked up and rubbed Yun Nuashing's head with a smile. He also obediently lowered his head and allowed her to rub his head gently. He nodded as he listened to the beautiful woman's advice. It felt like a mother sending off her child who had left for a foreign land. Divine King, how are Ming and the others? Yin Nuashing couldn't help but ask. Thinking of the 2 little girls who fell into a deep sleep after going to the East Sea, Yin Nuashing felt very distressed. Hearing him mention this, the beautiful woman couldn't help but sigh and shake her head. She said, "They are still sleeping on the star-casting platform. Several temple masters have come to see them. Temple Master Shui, who specializes in soul and spirit, also came to see the situation, but they didn't solve it. But you don't have to worry. Temple Master said that although their souls have left their bodies, they haven't really left their bodies. Now their condition is very good and their lives are not in danger. Don't worry. Also, little Ming has grown up. You will be surprised the next time you go back and see her." Yin Nuashing was worried and happy at the same time. He was worried because they hadn't woken up yet, and happy because he heard that Ming had grown up. That's right. It wasn't until now that he realized that more than 10 years had passed. Ming had grown up. When he first saw her, she was only 4 or 5 years old. Calculating the time, it had already been 14 years since he saw her. But at that time, he heard Ming say that she was already 8 years old. Then she should be 23 or 24 years old this year. Little Ye should also be around this age, but he didn't know which of the 2 girls was older. Let's assume that I was 14 years old when I fell. 18 years, I'm already 32 years old. Suddenly thinking of this question, Yin Nuashing was stunned. However, the lifespan of a demon step expert was at least 100,000 years. He hadn't even reached 1,000th of that age. Although he knew, he still felt strange. Big brother. Suddenly, a soft body bumped into his arm, interrupting his thoughts. He hurriedly turned his head, only to see little Ye hugging his arm tightly, staring at him with a pair of watery eyes. There was actually a trace of pleading in Mei Mao's eyes. "Big brother, can you take little Ye with you? Uncle Hai and the others have all left. I don't want to go back alone. It's not easy for us to meet again. I don't want to be separated from Big brother, okay?" Little Ye is very obedient. Little Ye said coquettishly as she hugged Yin Nuashing's arm and shook it gently. All right, I'm fine with it." Yin Nuashing blinked and suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned his gaze slightly, only to see Qin Yin looking helplessly at little Ye beside him. Especially when she heard him say that he was fine with it, she sighed and couldn't help but shake her head. "Huh?" Yin Nuashing blinked in astonishment. "You spoil them too much." Seeing him look over, Qin Yin rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. She didn't know who he was referring to by them. "You've been living in the open all this time. The place you're going to is so dangerous. Little Ye is only celestial level 7 now. How could she stand your torment? Qin Yin sighed and walked over, looking at little Ye, who was hiding behind Yin Nuoxing and carefully looking at her. Mei Mao actually had a trace of dignity and worry in her eyes. About that, back then, I was drifting with little Ming when I was mortal tier. The world was our home. We've endured for so many years. Little Ye is already celestial level 7. Yin Nuoxing smiled and changed the topic. The point is, isn't she willing? You're a pervert. Don't lump other people together. Qin Yin rolled her eyes at him. Mei Mao was still a little unwilling. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes and suddenly teased. Why? Are you jealous of your sister? Hearing that, Qin Yin rolled her eyes, but looked at him strangely for a while. After a while, she turned around and stood at the side, becoming a part of the background again. She didn't say anything else. After seeing that Qin Yin had given up struggling, little Ye was so excited that she directly jumped up and acted coquettishly in front of Yin Nuoxing for a while. When everyone's expressions became strange, she laughed and jogged towards Xian, pulling her in phone to chat. Brother Yin, you also wants to go. You can't favor one and discriminate against the other. You, or can't even go back to the demon world. Before Yin Nuoxing could heave a sigh of relief, Yu also ran over from the side. She pulled Yin Nuoxing's hand and lightly shook it. She smiled charmingly, revealing a row of pure white teeth. She was indeed very cute, but it caused Yin Nuoxing's forehead to droop with black lines. When they parted, everyone was emotional for a while. The Empress also wanted to go with Yin Nuoxing. Previously, the latter also pestered her to guide him in his cultivation. Although she always said that she wasn't qualified to be his master, teaching him cultivation was his wish. As for Mountain, Soul Blade, and the others, they followed Jin Wang and the others to the Nine Deities Temple. Regarding this, the Golden Empress and the others were naturally very welcoming. They were still worried about the lack of manpower. These newcomers included a blacksmith, an alchemist, a seer, and an array master. There were also very precious human resources. Seeing that the portal disappeared in space, Yin Nuoxing stopped waving his hand and looked back. He also had a headache. In addition to the original group of 7, there was now Xiao by the 6 demon emperors, the Golden Empress, the Empress, and 2 little girls who didn't quite see eye to eye. As for the people from the Yu family, they had already returned after the event. At that time, Yuanxi had already cried to his heart's content. So many people, but they're all acquaintances, so it won't take up much of my energy. Yin Nuoxing walked to the side of the crowd and laughed self-deprecatingly, shaking his head. Xian and the others also laughed bitterly. If this guy stayed in a group of unfamiliar people, his energy would be exhausted very quickly. After laughing for a while, Yin Nuoxing's gaze swept across the crowd. Being stared at by 17 pairs of eyes, he still felt a little uncomfortable. He rubbed his cheeks, flipped his palm, and took out an object the size of a wash basin. It looked like an altar, and there were 8 sharp pillars at the edge, curving towards the center. This was the star map that Xian Yin had given to him. During these years of traveling in the realm of the gods, besides picking up 2 fragments at the Tana's Water God Temple, Yin Nuoxing would occasionally take a detour to collect fragments of the star map. However, he didn't manage to fix it, but it seemed like it could be activated. Look, there's so many of us here. There are even 8 emperor gods here. I want to try this thing. Yin Nuoxing laughed dryly. This thing has the smell of a coordinate formation. Could it be that it can be transported through coordinates? When Yishi saw this thing, she immediately smelled something different. She was the only formation master present, so she knew more about this kind of thing. It's a little different. It said that you can go anywhere you want, and you can teleport anywhere in the realm of the gods. However, it's damaged. Yin Nuoxing nodded and grinned. Everyone nodded, but when they heard the last sentence, they were stunned. Let's go. Yin Nuoxing laughed softly and placed his other hand lightly on the star map. A wisp of silver-blue energy flowed from his body into the star map, and then it shone brightly. No, wait. In the bright light, a series of shrill screams rang out. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.